Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything going on in the world of sports. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go.
Instead of looking deep inside, every word I have to say, keep it simple.
Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. Wait for it. His name is Padawan J.
Let me talk to you.
Yeah, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do.
We have a lot to talk about in the land of movies, TV, comics, and more, plus sports and pro wrestling. This is a fusion edition of the show because there is a lot going on, and when Mother Nature decides to throw us that curveball, we have to adapt.
It's now we're not even in the third week of the year. You know, peek behind the curtain, we're recording this on January 17th. So we're just a couple days shy of the start of the third week of the year. We've already had two, I'll use air quotes, major snowstorms. Now, it's not anything necessarily as bad as what they saw up in Buffalo this past weekend, but it's enough to be a nuisance. I'm already over it. Not going to lie.
See, I don't mind snow unless I have to drive in, and it kind of throws a little curveball on the plans, and especially with how much content we have been producing between here and Nerd Initiative. Shout out to everybody there. It does kind of make the schedule a little tight. So when we have, road delays, so to speak, and treacherous weather, we have to adjust the schedule. So
snowing for 14 hours straight.
Right. So we have to adapt on the fly, and that's what you're getting here, a fusion edition of the show. But fear not, we do have another episode dropping shortly after this one comes out with a good friend of the show, Michael Basudel from the Massiverse.
Say, I know that guy.
Yep, he came by and had a lot of information to tell us about the big year they have in the land of comics, so that'll be coming out shortly after this episode. But we have to get through this one first. But Pat, where does everybody go to find out?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. You swing on over to the website, you drop the subscribes, the follows, the likes, the shares. It's all in the directory, which has how many providers, Pat?
117,000.
Sounds about right to me. Also, while you're there, sign up for all the social media accounts. We have been active on a lot of the new sites like Threads and Blue Sky, getting a lot of followers there, which we do appreciate having those conversations with everybody. The TeePublic store link, there's always something going on there. Always. And then the Patreon link, $1 tier, $2 a month. You can support the show that way and you get some bonus content too. Not sure what we're going to do this month, but we'll do something fun. We always do. Also, the blog section, the classifieds, which has friends of the show, such as Nerd Initiative, like we talked about. 3FN Podcast just celebrated their 300th episode.
Wow, good for them.
Yeah, exactly. So shout out to the birthday boy himself, Rich,
Yeah.
Ron, and Diesel for doing 300 Maximum Overdrive. Great episode if you haven't checked it out there, but that's why we have the player right there, so you can listen to the show right there. Boom, it's so easy. Also, Dragon Master Games, so many other great friends of the show there. You can find their links and go support them right there on that page as well. And if you want to talk about supporting some friends of the show, definitely check out the music section. A lot of new stuff is coming from some of our favorite artists like Brian Wolf and the Howlers, Floodlands, Second Suitor. Shout out the Robots is back in business. Love seeing new music coming from those guys. Also, Tom Jolu. I mean, the list goes on and on. Basically, it's anything and everything that is the ODPH. You can find it at odphpodcast.com. And if you're using hashtags on the socials, remember to use the hashtag ODPHpod. But let's kick this episode off the only way we can. We have to recap a wild weekend.
Yeah.
Pun intended. In the NFL, wildcard weekend came and went. So, Pat, let's recap it.
Yeah, so as we do typically in years past, we're going to go in the order these games were played. So starting off, the first game was on Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC, and that was the Houston Texans taking on the Cleveland Browns, and the Houston won by the final score of 45-14. C.J. Stroud, 16 of 21, 274 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Joe Flacco, 34 of 46 for 307 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Kareem Hunt led the way for Cleveland in rushing with 8 carries, 26 yards, just 1 touchdown. Devin Singletary led the way for Houston with 13 carries, 66 yards, just 1 touchdown. Nico Collins led the way for Houston in receiving with 6 catches, 96 yards, 1 touchdown. And it was David Njoku leading the way for Cleveland with 7 catches, 93 yards, and no touchdowns.
Well, a couple different stories going on with this game.
C.J. Stroud is him.
Yeah, rookie of the year.
Uh-huh.
You can't say otherwise.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's got that locked up. Performances like this, if you're a Houston fan, you have to be so excited about the future.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, whatever happens next week, it doesn't matter. If they take an L, season's still a win.
Absolutely. And considering you're in what a lot of people considered a rebuilding year, 10 wins and making it into the playoffs and into the divisional round is overachieving.
Oh, absolutely. So they are literally playing with house money. They have nothing to lose, nothing to fear. I love the bravado of Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
He is just going out there and balling. And to take it to a Cleveland defense, which has literally been the sole reason they're in the playoffs.
Well, that and Joe Flacco finding the fountain of youth.
Well, Joe Flacco has been doing decently.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we always say is the biggest Band-Aid of all is winning.
Yes.
He has not had great games.
Right.
He's had good games.
Right.
And he's gotten by with that defense bailing him out a few times. It didn't happen this go-round.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, for him throwing 300 yards and having one touchdown is a little deceiving.
Yeah.
2 interceptions is the one thing that took me, right out of the equation here, so to speak.
Well, that and the O-line failing him a little bit there. 4 sacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Houston came out, and they jumped out to an early lead, and they never let up the pressure.
Boy, I wonder if the Jets are regretting letting Joe Flacco go.
Oh, I think so. I think considering how their season went without Aaron Rodgers in the lineup, I think they're regretting a lot.
Yeah, I mean, considering the fact that Flacco only played, 5 games in the regular season and 1 game in the postseason, so 6 games effectively this year. Coming off his couch watching Netflix and, whatever else. His lowest passing yard total for the season was 254.
Yeah.
That's not fucking bad if that's your lowest.
No, it's definitely not. In Cleveland, I don't say they have a quarterback controversy, but
I will. You got a quarterback controversy.
But you have to take a look at what you had with him and then with Deshaun Watson, who has a guaranteed contract.
You're now a full season into this because you got to remember he missed the first half of last season, and then he missed the second half of this season. So he's played a full season effectively. We'll just say for simplifying everything.
Right?
Has he really delivered for you?
No.
You look at. Obviously, last season was a wash because we knew they weren't going to get far.
Right.
But then you come into this season where they were kind of on the outs, and Flacco and the defense had to will this team into the playoffs. Considering the fact that you're paying Deshaun Watson that albatross of a contract.
Yeah.
Are you getting what you paid for? I mean, that's ultimately at the end of the day when you buy a car, when you buy a video game. Are you going to get your money's worth out of this? And I'd say for Cleveland fans right now, no.
No, at the time, I understand why they'd made the move. I mean, granted, they overpaid. We've never shied away from saying that.
Yeah, they did.
So now they have to really take a look at this offseason and what they're going to do. Because Flacco, I mean, he played well.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't great,
Yeah.
but he played adequately enough.
Yeah.
Especially without Nick Chubb to bail him out in the running game.
Right.
I mean, Kareem Hunt did okay.
Yeah.
But the production level, I mean, in my opinion, fell off. So
get some O-line help, maybe a couple other receivers in there, because Njoku's good, and Amari Cooper's not bad, but then once you get past that, it's kind of what have you done for me lately?
Well, that's a question mark that Cleveland's going to have. But
defense is fine.
Defense is fine. They had no answer for C.J. Stroud, so they might have to address a couple players here and there.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, the big win here and the big story is C.J. Stroud. Mm-hmm. First playoff game, really made a statement win.
Yeah.
Albeit, though, I don't think he's going to have the same success next week.
Probably not. He's got the unfortunate matchup of playing Baltimore.
Yeah.
And we're currently, as we record, it is Baltimore favored by 9.
Yeah, Baltimore, I don't think is going to be an easy task for him.
It's not going to be easy.
Their defense, I know, is going to gear in on his weaknesses, and it's going to be a true test. So if he does pull it out, he's writing a storybook story right now.
Mm-hmm.
Storybook fairy tale, I should say.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't, hey, it's a great season nevertheless.
Yep. Then the other game on Saturday took place at 8 o'clock on Peacock, which everybody saw was the most watched game of all history. Don't look that fact up. Just trust me. Just trust me, bro.
Statistician to the stars, folks.
You had the Kansas City Chiefs take on the Miami Dolphins in balmy, warm Kansas City. I'm kidding. Because everyone and their mother froze their ass off in what was it? It was like the third or fourth coldest game in NFL history.
Yep.
Yeah, it was cold. But Kansas City emerged victorious, winning by the final score of 26-7. Patrick Mahomes, 23 of 41 for 262 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Tua Tagovailoa, 20 of 39 for 199 yards passing, 1 touchdown, just 1 interception. Raheem Mostert, 8 carries, 33 yards, no touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco led the way for Kansas City with 24 carries, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. And it was Rashee Rice leading the way for Kansas City with 8 catches, 130 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. And Tyreek Hill leading the way for Miami with 5 catches, 62 yards, and just 1 touchdown.
Well, the takeaways here, Miami is who we thought they were. For being the team that had the high-powered offense.
Put up 70 on the Denver Broncos.
Yep. Really struggled against a Kansas City team that is not known for their defense. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo is a great defensive coordinator. Might be the best in the game right now. Might be.
Oh, yeah.
But when you have the weapons that they do, there is no excuse for putting up 7 here against a Kansas City team that, I mean, granted, Kansas City at home, we always say there's something you know, special there, quote unquote.
Home cooking.
Yeah, there's something about them that makes them very tough to beat at home. But in this situation, Tua needed to play better. He didn't.
I would have run the ball a few more times.
Oh, I think so too.
8. So I mentioned Raheem Mostert had the 8 carries. Tua had 3 carries. Jalen Waddle had 1, and Devon Achane had 6. So you couple those 3 together with Mostert's 8, you had a team total of 18 carries, which is not a lot. I mean, granted, Kansas City had 34. 24 of them were from Pacheco himself, but still there's another 10 between the other 3 guys.
Yeah. This was a situation that they just were not ready for the climate they walked into.
Maybe Miami should have swag surfed a little bit.
They should have done something. I mean, yeah, that video is going crazy right now. I guarantee you that will not be played up in Buffalo unless they're trying to do some trash talk this week.
It could be. Just don't ask Peter Rosenberg about swag surf.
Yes. Yeah, don't. It's not worth it. But in this situation, though, Kansas City did what a seasoned veteran team does in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the other thing for Miami that's concerning, too, is obviously the weather played a factor into this game.
Sure.
You know, because they had, what was it, Rodney Harrison, Tony Dungy, and then the other, I forget who the other person was with them on the sidelines for, like, their pregame show. And they talked about, like, how frozen the field was and how cold it is. And, like, this wasn't something that swooped in overnight and, like, came out of left field. You know, the Pat McAfee show had Jim Cantori on their Friday talking about how cold this was going to be. Like, it was known days in advance how cold this was going to be and the wind and everything else. So, like, I feel like Miami should have gone in with a better game plan than just, hey, we're going to air it out fucking 900 times. And shit, Tyreek's down there somewhere. You know, because I feel like if they'd have come up with a better game plan, because clearly they didn't, only 7 points, and that was in the second quarter, they might have made this one at least a little more competitive.
It would have been a little more competitive, but I think the problem is Spagnuolo shut that running game down quick.
Yeah, that does play a factor.
That's something. I mean, you have to think about it. Mostert and Achane was in this game. Like, they were healthy and involved.
Yeah.
But when Achane only gets 6 carries, 9 yards.
Yeah.
And Mostert, 8 carries, 33.
Yeah.
I mean, it really threw a curveball and everything. And I just think it was the pressure getting to Tua a little bit. And when you take Tyreek Hill out of the equation, because let's face it, 5 catches, 62 yards is not a bad stat line.
No, it's not Tyreek Hill level, but anybody else, it's not bad.
Right. But then looking at the rest of that receiving core.
Yeah.
And especially Jalen Waddle, I mean, if you're healthy, you're on the field. So
yeah.
I understand that he was coming back from injury, but still.
I mean, at the same token, though, it's also the Kansas City defense where if you want to stop Kansas City's offense, stop Travis Kelce, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Stop Tyreek Hill, force the other guys to step up. And to a larger degree, Kansas City did. They shut down Tyreek Hill because, 6 for 52 is not a bad stat line. Like I said, though, it's not Tyreek Hill quality.
Yeah.
It's just the other guys from Miami didn't step up.
They didn't step up, and that's the whole thing right now is this team was really resting on the fact that Tua has been able to air the ball all over the place.
Yeah.
You can't do that in the freezing weather.
Eventually, the tank runs on empty.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, you can't do it. And this is a situation for Miami. I heard this on a couple social media and sports sites, too, and I want to get your opinion about this.
Okay.
Is Tua's coming into the last year of his contract?
Yeah.
Do you re-up him or do you let him go?
I'd re-up him. He's been decent. I don't see anybody else out there right now. either entering the draft this year or potentially entering the draft, say, the year after, that I'm like, you know what, he might be better. I wouldn't give him like a super mega contract. I'd re-up him for something decent, though.
I think it'd be smart to re-up him.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't give him a long-term deal.
No.
But I think...
And I wouldn't give him like a Patrick Mahomes deal.
Oh, absolutely not. Unfortunately, you can't.
Something middle of the road.
It's great that he came back from the hip injury he had in Alabama.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. And for the egregiousness that happened to him last season.
Shout out Fitzmagic.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest about that. For all the concussions he unfortunately suffered last year.
Yeah.
To see him back on the field, that's the biggest win of all. I hope he does get the bag. I'm not telling him not to.
Right.
You know, by all means, like,
right.
I'm taking my Bills fandom out of this.
Sure.
The fact that he's healthy and still playing football is the biggest win of all, and I'm happy to see him do that.
Absolutely.
I would like to see him get paid, but I just don't think if he's in the current system that they have set up in Miami, I just don't know if he's the guy.
Yeah.
I think he could prosper somewhere else.
Yeah.
If you want to ask me, I mean, you can honestly throw him to a handful of other teams.
Oh, yeah.
I think he'd do great in Pittsburgh, to be honest with you.
Atlanta wouldn't be bad.
Atlanta would not be bad for him. Arizona would not be bad. I mean, Kyler Murray, you just don't know what you're going to get out of him every year.
Yeah, it depends on what Call of Duty's doing.
Exactly. So, I mean, there are some landing spots for him if they wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I think he has to do his best for him, and I just don't think he's going to get there with the current setup that they have in Miami. But it's going to be an off-season question we're going to have to watch. But Kansas City has a date next Saturday or Sunday that we'll talk about a little later.
Yeah, so then we're moving into the Sunday games, which this one took place 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, where you had the Green Bay Packers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And the Green Bay Packers emerged victorious, winning by the final score of 48-32. Jordan Love, 16-21 for 272 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Dak Prescott, 41 of 60 for 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Tony Pollard led the way in Dallas for rushing with 15 carries, 56 yards, just 1 touchdown. Aaron Jones led the way in Green Bay with 21 carries, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, it was a little bit of a homecoming for him if you did not watch the game because he's from Texas. For Green Bay in receiving, it was Romeo Doubs, 6 catches, 151 yards receiving, 1 touchdown, and for Dallas, it was C.D. Lamb, although admittedly it took until the fucking second half to happen.
Yeah.
9 catches, 110 yards, and no touchdowns.
Well, the story of this one is all Green Bay needed was love.
Can you believe that, depending on how things play out, Green Bay will be on its 3rd consecutive franchise quarterback in like 3 decades?
It's amazing.
It's fucking insane.
I mean, we talk about things you'll never see in the NFL again. I depending on who's running the Packers organization when Jordan Love gets to the end of his contract,
right,
and such, I don't think you're going to see a run like this.
This is insane.
Honestly, I don't think you're going to see it again. I mean, they might strike lightning in a bottle 4 times, but to see what they found with Jordan Love, and they did the smart thing too, which I would love to see more teams do. But with the current structure of the business side of things, I understand why they don't, but I don't agree with it. I want to make this very clear. Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers for...
Well, that's because he was sitting behind a future Hall of Fame quarterback who also sat because he was sitting behind a future not a future. He was at the time, he was sitting behind a future Hall of Fame quarterback.
Right. But they let him sit and learn.
Right.
But you don't have that with other teams.
I mean, that's you hear that argument, though, come every draft where it's like, well, if they get drafted here, will they sit? Will they start? And most teams, they have to start immediately.
Well, that's a situation that Green Bay has lucked into.
Right.
But it's a situation that if you know your team is not going to make a run at the playoffs, let him sit. I understand about getting some reps in.
Sure.
But the more that he's allowed to pick up a speed of a game, I think that only helps your quarterback.
Sure.
Because by season 3, that's why I say is the benchmark, that's when you have the speed of the NFL fully mastered.
Right.
Because it's a whole different game than college.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that with Jordan Love, what he's done this year, and especially too, the Packers jumped out 27-7 with some key interceptions on Dak, who played awful, even with 400 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Those 2 interceptions came back and resulted in points for Green Bay.
Dak also got sacked 4 times, and he only had 2 interceptions. It should have been a 3rd.
Mm-hmm. But it's a situation that for Dallas, who is a very well-rounded team.
Undefeated at home. The stats they were putting up at home on offense or whatever the hell it was like the best for the team since the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I turned the game on, when it got time when was watching with my fiance. And when the game started, she's like, oh, who do you think is going to win? And I said, well, it should. I go, it's the playoffs. You never really know who's going to win, because weird stuff happens. I go, but on paper, it should be Dallas for everything I just said. Undefeated at home, all the points, all this, all that. I go, Dallas is finally looking like the team that their fans always claim they are, that it's their year. They're going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to make a run, this, that, and the other. I'm like, they're finally looking pretty goddamn good.
Yeah.
And then they come out and lay the biggest goose egg of all in that first half. And then they just never recovered.
They almost did, though.
Well, yeah, garbage time.
Granted, but you know what? That's the only thing that kind of worries me a little bit about Green Bay.
Okay.
That they still had that big lead, but Dallas was coming back on them.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they just too little too late.
Well, it's because whatever they were doing with CD Lamb in the first half, they stopped.
Yeah.
Because if memory serves, CD Lamb had like 2 or 3 targets. I forget what it was in the first half, but no catches. Mm-hmm. He didn't get his first catch of the entire game until like a couple minutes into the second half.
Yeah. It's a situation that Green Bay tried mixing up some things,
yeah.
and it came back to haunt them.
They tried overcomplicating it.
And I will tell you this right now, I don't think they're going to have the same luck next week. Now,
not unless something weird happens.
I could be proved wrong because obviously we know Green Bay and San Francisco have a unique history as of late.
Yeah, they do.
But it's going to be a situation that with San Francisco having everybody fully rested, which is sorely needed for that team, and being the number 1 seed, Green Bay has its work cut out for them. Much like in the same vein as C.J. Stroud. Green Bay, if they lose this game next week, it's still a win.
Oh, absolutely. This was a lot of If you talk to a lot of Green Bay fans, going into this season was a rebuild year.
Oh, yeah.
And they're in the same boat as Houston. You fucking tell me you're in a rebuild year, you still managed out in 9 wins, and you're in the playoffs, and you're in the second round of the playoffs?
Yeah.
Fucking good for you.
Exactly. So it's a huge win for them. Jordan Love has a lot of confidence building, and that can only help this team.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a few pieces away, I think, from really making a run.
Yeah.
But I will say this. If they pull off the upset against San Francisco, I would be shocked.
Watch them find, because that's, you alluded to it, that's been Green Bay's Achilles heel the last, decade or so. Aaron Rodgers could never beat San Francisco. Even when the game was in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Could never beat San Francisco. And 49ers fans, I'm not trying to rain on your parade, and I'm not trying to shit on you. Just watch this be the year that Green Bay finally gets past San Francisco, and it's because Aaron Rodgers isn't there.
It'd be insane. It'd be absolutely insane. But we'll have to wait to see what happens there. And in Dallas, the only questions you have now is Mike McCarthy.
Get rid of everybody.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy, I think, has got to be gone.
McCarthy's got to go. The defensive coordinator's got to go.
Dan Quinn?
Dan Quinn's got to go. And listen, I know a lot of Cowboys fans are saying certain former New England Patriot head coach Bill Belichick.
He's not going there.
He's not. You and I both agree he's not going there. No. And there might be some Cowboys fans listening to us in the car who might have done an accent. Hey, easy there.
Sorry, Dre.
Keep your hands on 10 and 2 and watch the road. But for as much sense as that makes on paper, you look at how Belichick operates behind the scenes and how much in control he wants to be in the personnel side of things. And I'm talking coaches and players. And then you think of how in control Jerry Jones is. That is water and oil, and that don't mix.
It's a recipe for disaster.
I
fully agree with you.
Bill Belichick wants to be in control of who they draft, when they draft them, and who they take on offensive coordinator. And every other, coaching position in the team. And Jerry Jones wants to do the exact same thing. So it's one of those situations where you think you and another person might be good in a relationship together until you actually try playing it out in the relationship and it doesn't work out.
Yeah, this is a situation that for Dallas, if they kept,
there's better candidates.
Yeah, I think McCarthy's time is up, though, but it's a situation of who you got out there.
I tell you this, if Washington is asinine and doesn't give Bieniemy the head coaching job, boom.
That'd be brilliant.
There you go.
It'd be brilliant to do because your defense is solid.
Yeah.
But you got to get that offense retooled. And if Dak's the guy, which he should be, I don't fault this so much on Dak as just McCarthy needed to do something to switch the momentum up.
And I'm sorry, McCarthy has to go because you had Kellen Moore there last season as your offensive coordinator, and then you fired Kellen Moore because, McCarthy can do a better job. He's going to do all the play calling. Yep, and then you fucking come out in this performance?
Yeah, against the Green Bay
the
defense.
The rest of the season notwithstanding, because, yes, it was a great season. Yes, it was great statistically. You know who else had a great season statistically? The 2007 New England Patriots. What are they remembered for? Losing in the Super Bowl.
Indeed.
Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys fans are obviously going to remember this season for, we were 16-0 in the regular season at home or whatever the fuck it is. And all the statistics they put up, what the vast majority of fans, you and I, Coach Duffy and everybody else, what are we going to remember about the Dallas Cowboys from the season? They lost to the Green Bay Packers at home. The Green Bay Packers have more wins in AT&T Stadium in the playoffs than the Cowboys do.
Yeah. As we always say in wrestling, everybody remembers the finish. Nobody remembers the match.
Exactly.
And that's what you have here. So for Green Bay, they move on to a very tough task next week.
Mm-hmm.
But hypothetically saying they win.
Yeah.
And then the team we're going to talk about next, if they can pull off another win.
Good Lord.
Could you imagine the drama in the NFC Championship? There was drama for this game as well, too, though.
Oh, yeah, there was.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so this was the final game on Sunday where you had the Detroit Lions taking on the Los Angeles Rams in Detroit for the first home playoff game since like the 1990s, whatever the hell it was. Detroit pulled off the win, but winning by the final score of 24-23. Jared Goff, 22-27 for 277 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Matthew Stafford making his return to Detroit for the first time since being traded away. 25-36, 367 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kyron Williams led the way for Los Angeles in rushing, 13 carries, 61 yards, no touchdowns. David Montgomery led the way for Detroit with 14 carries, 57 yards, just 1 touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown led the way for Detroit in receiving with 7 catches, 110 yards, no touchdowns. And then for Los Angeles, it was Puka Nacua with 9 catches, 181 yards receiving, and just 1 touchdown.
Well, this was arguably the most entertaining game of the weekend.
Uh-huh.
And the drama was there. Matthew Stafford returning to Detroit in the playoffs, the team that he had been loyal to for many, many years.
Oh, yeah.
He was traded away for Jared Goff. He led the Rams to a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit has found new life under Dan Campbell, who, in my opinion, is Coach of the Year. I'm just going to put that out there.
It's up there.
And what they did here was just a slugfest.
Oh, my God.
And this was a situation that Detroit was lucky they won because there was a pass interference call that should have happened that did not happen late. That if that did happen, the Rams were going to kick a field goal and win the game. But I take nothing away from Detroit. This was all emotion in this game. Jared Goff played very, very smart. And to match up against Stafford, who really showed me the Rams are still a real deal in this league. And I was very impressed with what I saw him and Puka linking up multiple times. That's the one thing that worries me for Detroit.
Right.
Their secondary is very suspect.
I mean, because you take out Puka Nacua, which, listen, the Rams, for as down a year as they had, and everyone was ready to count them out because, their time has passed. They had a short window, and it's already closed. The Rams are actually in a not so bad place if you think about it.
Yeah.
The only thing they might have to look at is run game. 61 yards, not the best. But then you look at the receiving core. Puka Nacua, who took the bulk of the reps this year because Cooper Kupp was hurt for most of this year. But you got Puka Nacua, you got Cooper Kupp, which should come back on a healthy year next year. They're looking pretty good, and they were scrappy at the end of the season. But no, I agree with you. That's the concerning thing for me with Detroit. Detroit is scrappy. Detroit will play knockdown, drag out 80s football, and isn't going to win sexy. And they're not going to be running hook and laterals and Statue of Liberty plays, a la Boise State, Oklahoma. But they'll smash mouth football and they'll win. But they're going to have to go up against a team this upcoming weekend that, is also scrappy. And we'll see what happens.
I love the fact we live in a day and age where Detroit and Tampa Bay is going to go into the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
One way or another, one of those teams is going.
Yeah. Hey, listen, did anybody have a better week than anyone in the state of Michigan last week?
No, I will say this. Detroit came out. It was an emotional win.
You had Eminem cutting promos on both the Rams and the Lions.
Yeah, which there's now the meme going around, and I'm kind of on board with this if Buffalo can't do it. it has to be Detroit and Kansas City in the Super Bowl
That would be wild.
because
Detroit or Eminem versus Taylor Swift. Yeah.
I'm just saying I would just hope that the
Swifties.
the Swifties would be ready for the diss track.
I mean, listen, I already saw some Swifties going after the way Eminem was shown on the broadcast.
And that was a foolish idea by them.
It's a good thing we're dealing with 2024 Eminem and not 1999 Eminem because it'd be over. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm just going to say this very quickly. We saw what happened with MGK.
Uh-huh.
He's still got it.
Yeah, he does.
And I'm just saying, if it comes out of Detroit, I think you might see him come back out for that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but
Eminem might put in a request to Usher to do the halftime show.
yeah, we might have something happen at halftime. I'm just saying, but
I don't think they've done a song together, but they might come up with one real quick.
it'll be very quick on the fly. But that's the type of emotion that's getting sparked from this game. I mean,
Yeah.
all kidding aside, Detroit has been long overdue, 30 years since they had a playoff victory.
It was them and the Miami Dolphins who had not won a playoff game this century.
Yeah.
Now it's only the Miami Dolphins.
So Detroit wins gritty. Like I say, the performances shown on both sides of the ball. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, what can you say about him?
Oh,
You know, they could not have a better
what was it,
leader.
fucking, even Taylor Lautner was at this game. I saw.
Yeah, you can't have like more of support going into Detroit. Like I think they have won the nation's support.
Yeah.
because everybody
Shit,
wants.
they
to
got
see,
mine.
Yeah, everyone wants to see them win, except unless your team's still in the game.
Right.
But they showed just such grit and heart, and this is what Dan Campbell's done. We often refer to about creating culture and establishing culture. The mindset is we can beat anybody, and
Yeah.
that's what you need from your football team. And I tell you what, I understand why these players are playing so hard for them. They're going to have a tough task next week against. Well, we'll get to their opponent in just a little bit, but I'm going to tell you this: Detroit is making up for a lot of the tools that they're missing with just sheer heart. And that is the scariest thing to be facing as an opponent.
One thing I want to mention before I forget, because I mentioned Miami. Miami only had one win against a team over 500 this year. You know who had more than them?
Detroit?
No, the Patriots.
Oh, throw more salt in the wound, why don't you, Pat?
I have to do something. Then we get to the Monday games. And the first one that took place on Monday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. It was supposed to be Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern, but hey, Mother Nature decided to come in and dump 2.5, 3 feet of snow up in Buffalo. So the game got moved to Monday, and you had the Buffalo Bills taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the Buffalo Bills emerged victorious by a final score of 31-17. Josh Allen, 21 of 30 for 203 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Mason Rudolph, 22 of 39 for 229 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jaylen Warren led the way for Pittsburgh in rushing with 8 carries, 38 yards, no touchdowns. James Cook led the way for Buffalo with rushing, going 18 carries, 79 yards, no touchdowns. Should note before Ken fucking throttles me, Josh Allen also went 8 carries, 74 yards, 1 touchdown. The long one being the 52-yard freight train, because that's what that was. Buffalo receiving, it was Dalton Kincaid. It's 3 catches, 59 yards, just 1 touchdown. And for Pittsburgh, it was Pat Freemuth going 5 catches, 76 yards, and no touchdowns.
Well, a lot of storylines going on with this game.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, the snowstorm of snowstorms in Buffalo delayed the game a day.
Yeah, and hey, Buffalo ownership, work on getting that stadium cleared next time a little quicker, because that was slightly embarrassing. Just saying.
Well, before I get into the game, I'm just going to kind of make an editorial piece.
Okay.
Strictly opinion. I understand that with the new stadium, they were against putting a dome on. But this is also a situation that I think games like this prove that maybe, just maybe, the ownership group and the city of Buffalo need to go 50-50 on a dome.
Because this was fucking embarrassing.
Well, it was
to watch.
It was embarrassing for the simple fact of how many people got hypothermia or
Right.
were sick from it. If I'm not mistaken, I know there's a lot of people that got sick.
Well,
from
and the one thing we got to clear up too is there was a lot going on of, oh, hey, the Bills are offering $20 an hour, and anyone that's down to the stadium that wants to shovel. Okay, yes, that was true, but it was only to the first 200 people who showed up, and if you were registered online to do so and could prove with a driver's license or state ID. So if you just showed up with a shovel looking to get $20 an hour and you weren't registered, they were going to turn you away. But now I understand it took them so long because it was snowing for fucking like 24 hours or whatever insane amount it was, over the course of from Saturday into Sunday. But then at the same token, the fact that it wasn't until a couple hours before game time on Monday that the field was finally cleared, but then you only did, according to photos I saw, you only shoveled out the club seats in the stadium and you left everyone else to their own devices. There was one video circulating around of a Buffalo Bills fan with 2 pieces of cardboard, and I'm talking like a box of cereal that comes in your grocery store before they put it on the shelf. It was 2 boxes about that size, medium-sized boxes, not huge, folded up that they were using to shovel their own seat with. And then there was another video of a gentleman who was there, who was a Steelers fan, was there with his 2 kids, who was knee deep in snow, just slushing through this thing to try and make a path so he could get to his seat.
Yeah.
That's just a terrible look.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on with that. Like I said, I've seen differing reports saying about fans treated for
it wouldn't surprise me.
Hypothermia and all that. And that's why I'm saying I understand about the home field advantage with the snow and the cold, and I get it's football.
Yeah.
But at this day and age, I know the stadium hasn't been built yet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is something to consider.
Right.
Because if you're going to have more situations like this because of where you are geographically.
Geographically.
Sorry, I get a little emotional when I start talking about this.
Look up a map of where Buffalo is. They're right on the fucking one of the Great Lakes here in the States. And when that lake effect snow starts cranking up, it's like a fucking snow machine at your local ski resort.
Yeah.
It is going nuts.
So, I mean, that's something they're going to have to take a look at because I think we saw with this game. I'm
right.
sorry.
No, the only thing I know with their new stadium, because I was looking into if they're going to put a roof on the new stadium or not. They're not, but according to some reports I saw, the new stadium is going to have an overhang of some sort, which reportedly is going to cover some 60 to 70% of the seats. That's still leaving 30 to 40% exposed.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's something, but we're still in the planning stages.
Right.
If they really push the issue, and if I'm the NFL, I might maybe give it a nice nudge.
Shit, if I'm the owner, I'd fucking cover it myself.
Well, it's just,
do it as a tax write-off.
Well, like I say, with that side of the business things, there's a lot more moving parts.
Sure.
But because overall, I think that this played a big factor in this game.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Because the one thing that I noticed, and I don't know if you did too, Pat.
Okay.
When we saw a lot of these players hit the turf being tackled, did you not see a lot more injuries?
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think that was?
The field wasn't 100% cleared off. There were still some patches of ice and snow.
Yeah. That worries me for player safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we saw a few instances of that.
Oh, yeah.
I know Stephon Diggs was real shaken up. Bernard was shaken up on his leg too, which as far as I've heard, he just has a mild sprained ankle, which is good compared to what it looked like.
Yeah.
This is going to be a situation for the Bills. If they're going to face the Chiefs now, they need to be at 100%. They need to play an excellent game. And they did play a great game here against Pittsburgh. Albeit, though, the only thing that scared me is when Tyler Bass got a field goal blocked.
Mm-hmm.
The momentum shifted, and it took them a while to kick back into gear.
Right.
And that's something that I was not feeling so comfortable about.
Mm-hmm.
Albeit, though, they hung in there. They made some plays late when they needed to.
Yeah.
Josh and the rest of the offense looked great, except for a couple drop passes here and there, but it happens every game. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a team that I think can make a deep run. It's going to be a test, though, against Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be something because when you're relying on Josh to really kind of bail you out, even though James Cook had a great game running too.
Oh, yeah.
We have to give him his credit.
18 for 79. Not bad.
No, but I think this is a lot of situations where Josh showed the Josh of old.
Yeah.
He was very careful with the ball, and he needs to be against Kansas City. They got a legit chance to beat him outright.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what Kansas City team shows up because this is going to be away from home.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different ball game, and I think this is a situation that for the Bills, they need to make a statement win.
Yeah, no, I mean, this game went about the way I thought it would. I figured if the game was played on Sunday in the middle of the blizzard, it might go Pittsburgh's way, just because when it comes to running backs, I like Najee Harris and Jalen Warren better than I do anybody from Buffalo. Sorry, but when it comes to the tail of the tape, I'm picking them.
True story.
But since the game was moved to Monday and by then the snow had let up, all you had to deal with was just kind of the cold weather that came out on the back end of it. I went, okay, yeah, no, it's probably going to be Buffalo, and Buffalo, it's going to be an interesting test this upcoming week, and the other thing too, I would recommend is, hey, Buffalo, you might want to coach your players on some stuff you say in the media, because I know there was a Bills player on Pat McAfee's show on, I want to say it was Monday or Tuesday. And they brought up the whole Josh Allen 52-yard run, and at one point he went for a slide, and the Bills player said, we've been trying to convince that fucker to do that for a while. Not necessarily the thing I would want to hear one of my own teammates saying in the media at some point, when it comes to Josh running, but but no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's not too bad though.
No,
because you know what?
It's not ideal, but it's not great.
But you know what? That's not a call out more than likely. Granted, I've been sitting there telling him stop hurdling people.
Yeah.
For the life of me for a few seasons now. The fact they've been telling him to try to slide, I think, is a good idea too, because he runs very recklessly.
Yeah, and then like you mentioned, they're going to have a tough task this upcoming weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs. The game is in Buffalo, where, oh, by the way, and I'm reading this from the National Weather Service in Buffalo official Twitter account, quote, here are updated forecast snowfall totals, forecast snowfall amounts, excuse me. Yes, folks, they're getting more snow up in Buffalo. Goes on to say, this is the additional snowfall that is expected from 1 p.m. this afternoon through 7 p.m. Thursday. This does not include what has already occurred. So in the Buffalo area, between today as we record and Thursday night, they're looking at another foot of snow coming in.
Yeah, it's gonna be
and that's not counting whatever comes on the back half, because I know Good Morning America this morning was talking like another 2 feet or more coming.
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough one this weekend. I don't see it getting moved. I mean,
no.
But it's going to be a situation that the big story from here is the Bills got to really take a look at that stadium.
Right. Well, and I know some people are like, oh, why'd the game get moved? Why this? Why that? Because the conditions that we're setting up with this storm were similar to the ones where they had to move the Buffalo game to, where was it? Detroit a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And the storm that hit Buffalo then, people died. So that they didn't want to risk people's lives.
Exactly. No game is worth people dying over.
Nope.
None.
And then we got one more game to talk about. That was the game on Monday night where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took on the Philadelphia Eagles, and Tampa Bay won by the final score of 32-9. Baker Mayfield went 22 of 36, 337 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then Jalen Hurts went 25 of 35 for 250 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. DeAndre Swift went 10 carries, 34 yards, no touchdowns. Rashad White, 18 carries, 72 yards, no touchdowns. For Tampa Bay receiving, it was Cade Otton.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. 8 catches, 89 yards, no touchdowns. And then Devontae Smith led the way for Philly with 8 catches, 148 yards receiving, and no touchdowns.
Well, Philly, talk about an epic collapse.
Good Lord.
This is a situation that I didn't think was going to happen, but it did.
Well, hey, look at who you got as your defensive coordinator. Just saying.
Well, that's the problem that they...
Those of you not familiar, it's Matt Patricia.
Yeah. This is a situation that when Jalen Hurts was starting to get hurt, there was going to be problems.
Uh-huh.
And we heard that, obviously, A.J. Brown, little issues going on there.
Didn't play.
Right. And it sounded like just Philly stopped caring.
I think so, just because, 32-9, all right. It looks like, Tampa Bay blew them out of the water and statistical beatdown and everything else. Okay, so you look at the run game. I mentioned the 72 yards from Rashad White. He averaged 4 yards a carry. But then Baker Mayfield had 2 carries, 16. Chase Edmonds, 7 carries, 12 yards. Devin Tompkins, 1 carry, 10 yards. Trey Palmer, 1 carry, 9 yards. Nothing sexy. You get past Cade Otton, who I looked him up. He's in his second year out of the 4th-round pick out of Washington, for those of you who don't know. But so you get past Cade Otton, you're like, oh, what'd Mike Evans do? Well, he caught 3 balls on 7 targets for 48 yards and no touchdowns. Oh, well, that's not the best. What did Chris Godwin do? About the same. 4 catches on 5 targets for 45 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like... It's kind of the same thing we say with Tampa Bay or Kansas City. You take Evans and Godwin out of the game, which obviously you can't double cover the both of them at the same time. That's just not how it works. But you shut them down. Mm-hmm. You got to get the other guys to step up. And Cade Otton more than stepped up. I'll be honest, I've never heard of that dude. Cade Otton stepped up, but everybody else, it's like David Moore, 66 yards. Trey Palmer, 56. Mike Evans, I mentioned. Chris Godwin, I mentioned. Payne Durham, 18 yards. Chase Edmonds, 8 yards. Devin Tompkins, 4 yards. Rashad White, 3 yards. Nobody else stepped up on Tampa Bay's offense, but it didn't matter because Philly just seemingly didn't care.
Philly's defense didn't care.
Also, Tampa Bay shut down the tush push.
Mm-hmm. I think that once the Tampa Bay stopped their best punch, they had nothing.
Yeah.
And Philly just collapsed. I'm sorry, Philly was not mentally tough for this game.
Devontae was balling out of his mind, like I mentioned, 140 yards. But DeAndre Swift is your next leading receiver Which, okay, I get A.J. Brown wasn't playing. Totally understand. But you're telling me in a playoff game, your second leading receiver is your starting running back. Mm-hmm. Doesn't make any sense to me because Julio Jones, 22 yards. Dallas Goedert, 21 yards. Quez Watkins, 12 yards. Kenneth Gainwell, 10 yards. And Olamide Zacchaeus, 5 yards.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole problem. Nobody stepped up. Mm-hmm. Philly mailed this one in. I'm sorry to say it. Like, but tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not.
Philly just had nothing. And Baker Mayfield, the comeback story of all time here, showed up, proved what we've all been waiting to see since he left Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And literally played out of his mind.
You know what it was? It was, the Bane Batman moment in the Nightfall comic. Bane broke Batman's back, made him humble, brother. And it took a while for Batman to recover. This is Tampa Bay breaking Philly's back.
Yeah. Point blank. So now there's a question if Zertani's going to be back next season.
I doubt it. You start 10-1.
Yeah.
And then you go 1-5, arguably 1-7 if we're counting playoff losses here to your season total. Which everyone likes to count the Patriots' loss in the Super Bowl towards their total, so I'm counting it here. But you start 10-1 and then you go 1-6 to close out the year. Yikes. In my opinion, gotta go.
He's got to go, and I'm not sure who you plug in there, too. I mean, that's the situation. We touched upon Belichick, and I think that he's going to go to a rebuilding team.
That's the one team that might make me vomit because I genuinely do not see Belichick going to Dallas. It's fun to see the fucking photoshops and everything else,
sure, but
I just don't see it happening. That's the one that, like, if it happens, I might vomit.
Yeah, if he goes to Philly, that could be interesting. But I don't think he does. I think he goes either Chargers or Atlanta.
Probably.
I think he wants to rebuild a team, and if he can do this on his own, he's got to have enough parts there to get going. Mm-hmm. Atlanta would have just a lot of picks, if I'm not mistaken. But
probably.
Other than that, I mean, I don't really see the drive there unless he has complete, full control, and that's all he's looking for at this stage.
That's what he's got to have.
I don't know if he'd have that in Philly, but Philly would be a situation where he's got a great defense if he can will something out of them. And that offense is going to need some work.
Yeah.
Just point blank because, I mean, Jalen Hurts did not play great, but nobody else on that team really stepped up, in my opinion. So
right. Well, and you got to wonder how much the finger played a factor.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I think. A lot of it did, but, I mean, what other option did you have?
Not much.
That's the problem. So when you don't have any options, you got to go with what you got, and if it's not hot, it's not hot. Mm-hmm. That's what Philly is going to be outside looking in. Detroit versus Tampa Bay this coming weekend. That's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, so full schedule breakdown. So 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, January 20th on ESPN, ABC, and ESPN Plus will be the Houston Texans taking on the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, where the spread, as we record, is currently Baltimore by 9, and the over-under is 43.5. Honestly, I'd take the over on that one.
Yeah, I would too.
Then the 8:15 game on Fox is the Green Bay Packers taking on the San Francisco 49ers from Santa Clara, California, where currently the spread is San Francisco by 9. And the over-under is 50.5. I'd take the under. I'd take the under.
I might go over there, but I think the point spread's right, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I agree with the spread. I agree with the spread in both games. Then you get to Sunday, and then the 6:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS from Orchard Park, New York, is the Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Current spread is Buffalo by 3, and the over-under is 45.5. Take the over. I like the spread, no matter if it's Buffalo or Kansas City. Yeah, 3 about right. Easily, though. Take the over.
Going to be the best game of the weekend, I think, and yeah, this is going to be a real close one. I do like the Bills in this one. I just think the weather factor is going to play a bigger deal than anybody's giving a factor.
I want both you and Chiefs fans to really sweat this one out.
Well, we probably will.
Close game, going to overtime. Be like a last, 3 seconds left on the clock. Somebody had to take a timeout, whatever it is. Spike the ball, set up for a game-winning field goal. It's fucking snowing. Wind's blowing in a circle through that stadium. Really, I don't care who it is. Kansas City, Buffalo. Really make you sweat. And then the last game is 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC, where it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Detroit Lions from Detroit, Michigan. Currently, it is Detroit by 6.5, and the over/under is 48.5.
It's going to be a shootout there.
Yeah, it is.
I would take the over. Ooh. I do like Detroit, but we'll have to wait to see how this all plays out. A lot of storylines coming out of this, and in fact, this whole weekend crowned us a new Locks and Leaps champion.
Yes, it did.
The one and only Coach Duffy pulled it out because of Tampa Bay.
Dude better buy a Baker Mayfield jersey. It's all I'm saying.
That's what we're saying. We're going to have to wait to see him on social media as he has his year to be a champion, but for all of us, it starts. The preseason starts now. A lot of great storylines, though, coming out this weekend, so definitely hit us up on that hashtag ODPH Pod. What is your thoughts about Wild Card Weekend in the NFL heading into the next round of the playoffs? Let's talk about it, shall we? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Do not adjust your dial, or well, your phone, your watch, or whatever the heck you're using to listen to the awesome podcast you're currently listening to. I am the Duke of Nerds, Tyler Mack, and I am here to tell you that being a nerd can be a bit overwhelming, especially after 30. Life moves pretty fast in our nerd culture, and if you don't take the time to notice things, you miss out. That's why I'm here. As your Duke of Nerds, I am charged with educating, enlightening, and entertaining you on all things nerdy. I do it by running the 30 to Nerdy podcast. 30 to Nerdy is a Badcast Company production and currently playing wherever you cast your pod. Follow along each episode using the hashtag 30andNerdyPod and check out what all is going on at 30andNerdyPodcast.com. Whether it's DC, Marvel, comics, or video games, I have got you covered. So tune in now. Cheers to you, nerds.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we have to recap the biggest event in entertainment.
Yeah.
And that was Marvel Studios making their triumphant return to Disney Plus.
And their triumphant debut on Hulu.
Yeah, a lot of moving and shaking going on with the new year and their lineup of properties. And kicking everything off officially is Echo. Mm-hmm. So the Disney Plus show spinning out of Hawkeye, but if you know the comics, spinning out of Daredevil, more importantly, finally made its debut on the small screen. Alkaya Cox playing the role of Maya Lopez, a.k.a. Echo. Vincent D'Onofrio reprising his role as Wilson Fisk, a.k.a. Kingpin. And the story of the character that is going to be really featured, I think, in a lot more of the next phase of the MCU.
A lot of street level stuff.
Yes, I think we're going to see a lot more of that take place, and that's always a good thing. Maya Lopez is always an interesting character in the comics, has a very unique path that she goes through, involving the Avengers as well. I don't think that that's a big spoiler per se.
No.
But I think with how we are going into this next phase of Marvel Cinematic Universe, Echo is going to play a big role.
Probably.
So what we're going to be doing is breaking down the season that was, kind of give like our good, the bad, and the about it. But as we always like to do, if you're new to the show, first and foremost, thank you for checking us out. What we like to do is give you a spoiler-free statement of this show what we're going to be talking about. Then we're going to give you a countdown. If you haven't seen the show and you don't want anything spoiled, Pat puts right in the liner notes what time we start talking spoilers. So you can duck out, do what you got to, and then jump back in and get the full conversation after you've caught up, because we don't want to ruin anything for anybody. It's granted, it's been a week, but still, I know a lot of fans still have not officially seen everything yet.
People have been busy.
Right. And there's a lot of stories coming out of this, too.
Yeah, there is.
So we're going to give you a little speculation on where we think everything's going with that. So that being said, Pad, give me your spoiler-free statement on the series 1 of Echo.
I thought it was good. You know, it was something a little different than what we've seen previously, even from the Netflix shows, you know, the Daredevil and Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Defenders, and then also Punisher. And it was also different from what we've seen on Disney Plus, you know, with, you know, Falcon Winter Soldier, WandaVision, it was kind of in the same vein as Hawkeye, but it was still different enough that it didn't feel like, you know, a season 2 or season 1.5 of Hawkeye. You know, and I enjoyed it for the most part. It certainly had its points where I was like, what are we doing? You know, where is this leading? But overall, I enjoyed it. You know, it's not one I would necessarily like go out of the way to rewatch again anytime soon. But if I'm, you know, down the road looking for something to watch and, you know, I'm out of ideas of what to watch, or I somehow run out of things to watch because I've watched everything I want to watch, I might give it a rewatch.
I thought it was a great gateway into the next phase of the street levels. I'll just say the Defenders universe.
Yes.
That I think now making that transition into the official Marvel Universe canon.
Right, and this is something I feel we should mention because I don't remember them ever saying this, and if they did, I missed it. This is a Marvel Spotlight show.
Yes.
So this is a show that, as we alluded to in a previous episode, you don't need to have seen every other single Marvel movie or television show to understand. It doesn't hurt if you've seen Hawkeye, but you don't need to have seen Hawkeye to understand what's going on with this. So this is a show that if you're kind of falling off the wagon, so to speak, with the Marvel shows, just because they're not that good anymore, and you want to give this a shot, you can give this a shot without having seen everything else.
Yeah, I think the Spotlight series, we saw it with Werewolf by Night.
Yep.
I think is a great introduction to some of the lesser known characters.
Absolutely.
And I think this kind of is a springboard to get them into maybe some more series, depending on their reaction to this. And I think for Echo, this plays perfectly because of how she is connected to a lot of the other Defenders universe characters.
Yep.
And especially when you're trying to kind of give fans an idea where we're going with this.
Right.
The bonus scene at the end of this, and we will talk about that.
Oh boy,
sets a big stage.
Ooh.
But it really helped with the strong acting
that
was involved. I will agree with you. I mean, I thought it was good. I wasn't blown away by it.
Yeah,
but I was thoroughly entertained. I thought Akai Cox played great as Maya.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you got Wilson Fisk on there, it's great.
I mean, for me, just, the show was good. Like I said, it was good. I enjoyed it. But it wasn't like that next level where I am chomping at the bit to get home from whatever I'm doing that day to watch the next episode. I certainly took my time with it, and I watched it when I had a free hour or half hour to crank out an episode. But it wasn't in that vein of, oh my God, I have to get home and watch this next episode because the cliffhanger at the end of the last episode was insane.
Yeah. But there's a lot of good to be taken away from this, and the ripple effects are already being felt now. So if you haven't seen it, definitely make sure you give it a watch on Disney Plus or Hulu, wherever you're at in the world. But let's get into that spoiler talk because it definitely have a lot of points to talk about. So, Pat, in 3, 2, 1, Mayor Fisk?
Yeah, that was quite possibly the most insane bonus scene I've seen since maybe Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man 2, where we knew something had happened because Ant-Man wasn't in Infinity War and there was a loose reference to him, but then to actually see, what had happened, in that time in Ant-Man 2, and then you get to like the end of Ant-Man 2 and you go, holy shit, like, whoa. That end scene was nuts.
Well, it's an interesting scenario of how we get from point A to point B. Because what I thought they did really well is, like you touched upon, it's Marvel Spotlight.
Yep.
You didn't need to see any previous shows. They did a great recap of how Maya got to where she is right now. Because they did show a little flashback sequence about Ronin and the Tracksuit Mafia and her dad. So they did touch upon it just enough. And then when you start going into the origins of the first episode entitled Chafta, this is where I thought they did a great job of explaining about her car accident, which, did the damage to her leg.
Yep.
And then you start seeing about how she was moving from her hometown of Tamaha, Oklahoma to New York City because her father, William, was getting closer to the Kingpin.
Yeah, he was making some friends with some not so nice people.
Right. Zahn McClellan, who played her dad, I thought did a really good job about trying to establish this first because he didn't get a lot of screen time at first.
No.
But seeing the family reaction as he's getting, involved because the whole accident was because somebody severed the brakes on the car.
Yeah.
That caused the accident.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was a really nice touch. And I thought it kind of played into a little more as we know as the story goes on because anytime you're involved with Wilson Fisk, it never ends well.
Yeah, you start digging up a little bit of the soil, you start finding a trail of bodies buried underneath undersaid soil. I mean, and that's the thing too. I agree with you with William and the actor's portrayal because he definitely did a good job of like trying to show he cared for Maya and wanted her best, but wasn't necessarily going about it in the best way.
Yeah,
and was definitely entrenching himself with some less than stellar people.
And plus, it didn't go over the top with Kingpin either.
Yeah, which was nice.
Yeah, it was just kind of was a subtle nod in there. But as you start seeing when more is happening after her father's death, Fisk is now training Maya to kind of fill in that role of the enforcer.
And I agree with you with Kingpin, and they've handled Kingpin phenomenally with this whole miniseries because they could have easily gone like Ultimate Spider-Man, the comic series from the 2000s, and had him come in and crush some dude's skull, and I'd have been like, no, yeah, that's Kingpin, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but he played the part of the Kingpin, and I want to run everything. I want to have my finger in every pie I can possibly get my finger in, but I also don't want to get myself dirty.
Well, it's very compelling when you really take a look at the history of Wilson Fisk and how he's evolved over the years, even to now his current incarnation in comics, which is wild to think about.
It works, though.
It works, but it also gives that real, human element to him as well. Of just how calculating he is. And it's something that D'Onofrio pulls off so flawlessly.
Yes.
That when you start seeing him maneuver and get everybody lined up like the chess pieces, it's scary to think that he's capable of this, and then how he usually gets out of things too.
I feel like I've said it before, but D'Onofrio's easily in that class of like Viola Davis and was meant to play this role.
Oh, absolutely. No question about that. No question at all. Because then even when you see the initial encounter with Maya and Charlie Cox's Daredevil, which is a great sequence, happens quick.
Yeah.
They don't really dive into it. I love the fact that they went to the red suit instead of the one that we saw in She-Hulk.
Yep.
That it kind of gave the sense like, okay, this is going to be more grounded, more in the same vein of the Netflix shows, which is perfect. And then how this all kind of leads to Maya eventually finding out that Fisk was the one who arranged for her father to be killed.
Yeah, it's kind of like part of this episode is like the flip coin opposite side from what we didn't see from the Hawkeye series.
Yeah, which I loved how that different vantage point came into play.
Which is why I said, is it required you see Hawkeye before you see the show? No. Does it hurt? Absolutely not.
No, because the only thing you really know about Maya is a very skilled fighter.
Yep.
They haven't really dived into her photographic reflexes that she can see somebody, much in the same vein as Taskmaster. I said this last week, but that's the easiest way to describe it.
Right.
Or describe Maya, I should say, rather. But then you see that obviously we have the final scene from Hawkeye where Maya shoots Fisk in the face.
Yep.
And then we kind of speed off a little bit where Maya returns to Tamaha. So she's trying to reconnect with her life back home.
So, the puzzle is broken. She's just trying to put it back together.
Yeah, because obviously she knows she has no home with her adopted father of Fisk.
She also, as far as she knows, just shot the kingpin of crime in the head, and there's going to be a target on her back that is rather large.
Yeah, so it's a little...
Because you don't do that without making some enemies.
So it is a little crazy to see this take place, and then we see that Wilson Fisk obviously survives in the hospital.
Right.
So this is where you kind of see like the little eye patch he has going on too. And like I say, does tie into the story we talked about on Turn a Page, actually, Parts of a Whole. Which if you haven't read Maya's origin story, it's an excellent Daredevil story, so you definitely want to check that out. And then as the story kind of progresses, she's going back home, reconnecting, and obviously trying to avoid the Kingpin's grasp.
Yeah, because it seems like, having come home, it sounds like she hasn't been home since she initially left, which we saw in that like one scene in the first episode. So everyone's like, oh my God, it's been so long. How are you doing?
Yeah, because she's trying to reconnect. Because, there's a touching scene when she's a kid and she's leaving too.
Yeah.
And as she's trying to reconnect to her cousin Biscuits, which, I have to laugh, Cody Lightning's name there. He's kind of like the comic relief, if you will, for this. Which, he does play a great role with this. And obviously, as Maya's trying to kind of figure out her next move, when Fisk puts out the hit, so to speak, for Maya, people in town talk. Yeah. Everybody has delusions of grandeur.
Oh, it's that whole thing about, small town and how much really stays quiet at the end of the day. And, well, small town, people tend to talk and everyone knows everyone.
Yeah. So it is kind of a little crazy how everything starts playing out here. And then when Maya is trying to, get reestablished, well, the Kingpin's grasp comes to town. And then we get, that's more or less the drive of Loak. That was episode 2. Even though they did do some flashback sequence to the Choctaw tribe, and I love the fact that they kept that part of her history in there too. Because obviously with her being the first Native American superhero leading in their own series is a very big deal, and showing that history is just equally important.
Oh yeah, and representation matters.
Absolutely.
I got a buddy who is, I don't know the percentage, but it's enough of a percentage that he is Native American, and he loves the Marvel shows. He loves superhero movies, but it's nice for him to finally be able to connect and feel that like, oh, hey, there's somebody I can relate to on some level. And I've had the fortunate, slight side story, but I've had the, fortunate experience to go out to the American Southwest and see some of the Native American, stuff out there, the various sites and, experiences and stuff. I've gotten to sleep outdoors in much the same fashion that they did, way back when, and it's awesome to see. And I love that stuff. And just to get to see this stuff, on screen in an awesome way was just so cool to see.
No, absolutely. I thought they did a masterful job with it and really, portrayed it very respectfully and made it such an equal part of the story too with Maya. And I loved how they set it up because it provided a nice balance from what was going on with the Kingpin. Because I mean, still, the show could have really just been straightforward. Kingpin sending forces, Maya fighting back. They didn't do that.
The whole thing could have been set in pick one of the boroughs in New York City.
Yeah.
And it was just her lying low, trying to evade Kingpin forces or the power vacuum that would inevitably open up because the Kingpin's quote unquote dead and everyone assumes he's dead. And then he makes his triumphant return because it's only 5. This series is only 5 episodes. And then we'll just say partway through episode 3, he makes his triumphant return on screen. Oh, you thought I was dead. No, they could have easily done that, but they decided to take it in a different direction. And really take, a slight risk with it because not everyone's going to connect with this. Not everyone's going to understand it. Not everyone's going to feel like, oh, hey, this is cool to see. But it worked.
Oh, it absolutely did, especially, too, when it like we say, it provided a nice counterbalance to what was going on with Maya's uncle, Henry Lopez, who's played by Chasky Spencer. And obviously, he is the owner of a roller rink down there.
Yep.
But there is still a connection with Wilson Fisk because Wilson Fisk reaches outside of just New York City.
Yeah, he does. He's got long tendrils, if you will.
Yes. So when an employee snitches out that Maya is here, this is when the forces come down and provides one of the more insane action sequences going on because Maya has been fighting a lot of forces. And I don't think you'll listen to the song Dragula by Rob Zombie in the same manner.
Greatest music cameo or whatever you want to call it in TV history I've seen in quite some time.
Yes.
Oh my God. Possibly, the last great musical cue I can think from a TV show was, I think it was season 2 of, what was it? The Netflix Umbrella Academy, where they did Queen, Don't Stop Me Now.
Yeah.
Like that was the last great one I can think of.
Yeah, no, it was a perfect sequence too because while the fight is going on, while Henry and his daughter Bonnie, played by Devery Jacobs, is being held hostage, Maya is taking everybody out single-handedly in a laser tag scenario. Oh my God. It's perfect.
So good.
It's perfect, but this obviously buys some time for them to escape, but then again...
Do you ever really escape from Kingpin?
Exactly, too. So this is where everything kind of picks up in Tuklo, episode 3, and when this all happens, who finally shows up in Oklahoma but Wilson Fisk.
Yep.
And then, like I say, for Taloa, episode 4, we get like a mix of, a little backstory involving Maya, especially this is one that we saw too
in the trailers
with a very young Maya as a child trying to get ice cream. And when the vendor is not respecting her,
a little bit of a jerk.
Yep. Fisk goes off. And,
understandably so.
Yeah, understandably. Like I say, the one thing that they really did a nice job with D'Onofrio's character here, and this is something you see in the comics when it's done well, it's very good, is the Kingpin is more than just, I'm a bad guy. He does have that emotional child in him, but he's also somebody that's very protective of people he loves. And it's kind of this weird balance to give him another layer. So when you're watching him in these kind of scenarios, it throws you off because it's almost like making you sympathetic towards him.
Yeah.
So then when you see him do very bad things later, it's like, well, I don't want to root against him.
It's like the Malfoy family in Harry Potter, where we know what awful pieces of shit, they are, and just how evil they are and everything they're absconded in. But then at the same token, though, there's like points in the series where like you find out, oh, they made a generous donation to the hospital that, all the wizards use. And like, oh, that's really nice. But yeah, no, you're still a piece of shit.
Yeah. So it is kind of an interesting scenario playing out because Fisk is trying to lure her back
because he doesn't want to do what he knows he has to.
Yeah, because he's grown attached. He feels that Maya is his daughter, and it's a weird scenario playing out because with the Kingpin, you don't really think the side of him, but he's like, no, you should be at my side. You're the heir to the throne.
Yep.
and really tries selling this. And Maya is just saying, like, how far can I keep running? And it really kind of messes her up about where she's trying to go.
Yeah.
And obviously knowing that, the residents in Oklahoma there are going to be literally caught in the line of fire, it adds more pressure to her character.
Well, and especially at this point, some people are like, some of Maya's immediate friends, family, or whatever are like in the loop on what's going on. But then even some folks, not necessarily directly related, but like related by association, are starting to pick up that something's going on. Because it was Biscuit's mother, grandmother, whatever the family relation was.
Shula, who's played by Tattoon Cardinal.
She lent Biscuits her car, truck, whatever it was. She's like, oh, and she's talking to a neighbor. And she's like, oh, like she's going out to get her mail. And she's talking to a neighbor. And, oh yeah, I let my son Biscuits, borrow the car, blah, blah, blah. And then he brings back the car after an incident with Maya and Kingpin's forces. And like the front bumper is barely hanging on to the rest of the car. And he's like trying to sneak back in before she can see the car. And he drives right by him. So it's like stuff like that like, okay, the town is starting, because it's a small town. Everyone knows each other. Everybody talks, it's starting to leak out that, like, okay, things are not exactly stat quo.
No, they're definitely not. So when you start seeing these scenarios play out, it's just adding more tension as things are building, especially to, like I say, episode 4 might have been my favorite one.
Yeah.
With Taloa, because it was a lot more D'Onofrio and Cox going back and forth with the dialogue.
Yeah. And
really, you're trying to see that Fisk is just wheeling and dealing as much as he can, even saying to the point, well, the only reason I killed your father is because he was beating your mother. And they have this hotel confrontation, and he's like, literally, you have to leave with me, otherwise you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And when Maya decides not to, this is what leads into the final episode entitled Maya.
Because he's on the plane, or not? Is he in the car or on the plane?
I believe he's on the plane.
He's in a vehicle of some sort, and Maya was being tailed by some of his forces, but she loses him, and he gets told, like, hey, sorry, we had eyes on her, but we lost her, and then he just punches a wall.
Yeah.
Because he's not thrilled.
No, he's not, because he knows what he has to do. And this is an unfortunate thing that you've seen him go to great lengths, even with the use of this AI translator.
This needs to be a real thing.
Yeah.
I don't know who we need to talk to in like the science or medical community. This needs to be a thing, because that was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was an amazing thing that he was able to communicate with Maya, because Maya's deaf. With the use of sign language, and it was just this weird AI type thing.
It was like this augmented reality. He would speak, but then it was like a contact lens in each eye would like provide this overlay onto his body and would do the sign language motions of their hands and would allow her to read what he was saying. And then I think because I don't think we ever saw it from his perspective. I think, or if we did, it was a real blink and you miss it type scenario. From his perspective, it would give like subtitles of what she was saying.
Yeah.
This needs to be a thing. Like, not even joking.
So this is kind of an interesting scenario, how this all kind of builds towards the end, because Fisk knows what he has to do. It all centers around the Choctaw Powwow Festival.
Yep.
And this is where Maya makes her final stand, because obviously Fisk is going there and he's going to take out everybody and anybody that's there. Because obviously you can't cross the Kingpin.
Well, you can try. It doesn't end
You
well.
can try, and this kind of sets up a few different things, even though, like, I will say the one thing I didn't really like about this portion, it seemed like Kingpin's lackeys were too telegraphed.
Yeah. No, they were.
Like, that was the one thing that just really took me away from this. It's like,
Yeah.
not saying everybody needs to be Bullseye,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you could definitely tell, like, something's not right with this group of individuals.
Yeah.
They're in a band. They got rocket launchers and all types of nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, this episode kind of fell flat for me too, just because it felt like we were building towards this climax and this conclusion, and I wasn't necessarily expecting like, a knockdown, drag out fight, but I was expecting something. And it's kind of like, they were blowing the balloon up, blowing it up, blowing it up, blowing it up. And then instead of the balloon popping, and the popping in this case being the explosive action and the fight sequence, it's like they let the balloon off, the little thing that pumps the air into the balloon, and it just kind of spit and sputtered away.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's what really happens here, because when Maya tries making the play, and you see Kingpin kidnaps Maya's family.
Yeah.
And this gets kind of crazy, where she taps into the powers of the Choctaw, of her ancestors. And really, like, it shows them almost like using like the photographic reflexes, so to speak, of the past. Like, I really like the interpretation of the powers here.
I do too.
Like I say, so it really played in a point. And then this is where Maya kind of flipped everything. And I thought, I understand why they did this, but it was kind of like almost reminded me like Ghost Rider and a Penance Stare a little bit.
Okay.
Because Maya winds up trapping Fisk in his own memories of Fisk crying in a corner while his father was being his mother. And it was just something to like
A side we haven't seen before.
Right. Yeah, no, we definitely haven't seen that. And it was kind of an interesting play that they did. But when everything is all said and done, and we're talking about like everything's upset with the monster truck rolling over the van of the thugs, and the rocket launcher shoots a firework off instead. Like, I thought they kind of just tied it up too nicely. But at the end of the day, Fisk takes off and escapes the police. Maya says her goodbyes, and she's leaving for parts unknown. And that's like literally how it ends. But then there's the bonus scene that really, I thought, salvaged a lot from the finale. Because, Pad, what are we watching unfolding?
So it's Fisk on a plane ride back to New York. It's not explicitly said, but hey, that's where he lives. I'm presuming he's going back to New York, and he's talking with one of his lackeys, be it a secretary or crony, whatever it is. He's on the plane talking with somebody. And there's obviously, because he's a rich and wealthy individual, there's a television on the plane, and because it's a private jet, and the television is tuned into Spectrum News, specifically Spectrum News out of the city. And they're talking about how there's an upcoming mayoral race there, and how, you know, all of the candidates that are currently vying for the title of mayor, nobody really likes them, and how the polls people, or they're taking to the people, prospective voters, you know, they don't really like him, and they're really waiting for that third party candidate or that third candidate to come out of nowhere, that, you know, that relative unknown, that one who's not a traditional politician, somebody to really come and grasp the power and take it by the hands and really get a hold of this city. And that's where it slowly starts to dawn on Fisk without him saying anything. They're like, oh, they're talking about me.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that he's always had this eye on in the comics. And I always think that it's very tricky about how they've done this, because in recent years, we've seen what happens when he gets into power. And it's very cool. But it makes for great stories, is what I'm saying. But for the heroes involved, it's an interesting dynamic if they try pulling this off.
It's exciting.
Oh, it's going to be exciting. Because, I mean, this is tying into recent Daredevil.
Right.
And then even to a degree, if they want to keep going for what we're seeing in Gang War right now. So,
I mean, they could build to it.
I mean, they could. It's just there's so many moving parts involved.
Because the thing we got to bring up, too, is the day this show, specifically EPCO, dropped, Marvel added the Netflix shows to the MCU timeline. So Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Defenders, and Punishers are all in the official MCU timeline. And if you're wondering where you can see that official MCU timeline, if you go to your Disney Plus app on your phone or your tablet or whatever you watch it on, you go to the Marvel section, you scroll down a little bit, and you find timeline order, and you go past a little bit, you will now see the Netflix shows added in there. So they are a part of the official timeline. So now it's officially confirmed that, you know, the Defenders universe is canon. It is a part of the MCU. So now we're going into, you know, Daredevil Born Again, you know, with all of the past of what happened in, what was it, 3 seasons of Daredevil?
Yep.
Having played out, having happened. So this isn't a fresh, hey, it's a light allusion to what you saw before, but it's not the same guy. No, this is the same guy that you saw before in those 3 seasons of Daredevil. So this is a guy with motivations and history with all of those characters.
And I think that's going to play into nothing but big wins here.
Absolutely.
As they slowly start reintroducing the Defenders. In what incarnation, we don't know. But we do know Charlie Cox is back as Daredevil.
Yep.
The supporting cast is now rumored, and we want to stress rumored to be returning.
It's rumored they're returning, but the rumor isn't coming from Deadline or Hollywood Reporter or Variety. So for now, And of course, by the time you hear this, that could have changed, and Variety, Hollywood Report could have put something out about it. But for as of this recording, it's not being reported. So take it as a rumor for right now.
Yes, because like we say, the rumor that Deborah Ann Wall is back as Karen Page and Eldon Henson as Foggy Nelson is strictly rumor. So we want to just make sure we're driving that point home. But we are optimistic to see what happens because now with the shows coming back, it is a question of who is fully returning.
Yeah.
And we don't know. I mean, I think Luke Cage and Iron Fist are up in the air because
We know Kristen Ritter said she's up for doing it.
Kristen Ritter did say she wanted to come back as Jessica Jones.
Bernthal has been very vocal that he is willing to do the character again, but it has to be, in his words, the perfect story.
Yes. So, but I would say with Frank Castle, they can do it. Albeit, though, with the new Punisher series by David Pepose, they do have an out if they can't get Bernthal in.
Right.
And it would make sense, and it wouldn't tarnish anything.
Right.
So I want to stress that point, too.
Right.
Mike Coulter, who plays Luke Cage, is currently on another show right now. Mm-hmm. So that might be the only hiccup.
At the same token, though, he and Kristen Ritter are very good friends, and I could see her talking him into it.
Well, it just depends on getting out of... Like I say, you're...
They could make it work. Look at how many shows Pedro Pascal's on, and he's still got time for everything.
That would be the only hiccup. Like I say, it's minor, but they could make it happen. I think
Pedro Pascal's in everything, and he still has time.
Yeah, Coulter wants to come back, too. Finn Jones, we have to wait and see about that
That's the biggest question mark.
Yeah, whatever they're going to do with his character of Danny Rand. I mean, I think what they should do, but this is only early speculation, is do Heroes for Hire. It makes the most sense.
What about Shang-Chi 2?
Well, Shang-Chi 2 would be a great addition as well.
It's low stakes. You're not necessarily hinging the entire success of your next feature, be it television or film, on him. Mm-hmm. Because obviously you look at the reception Iron Fist got when it came out.
Yeah.
It might leave a slight sour taste in some people's mouth.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only question you have to see. But if you're going to be doing reintroductions, I think it would be smart to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the initial plan is going to be. I mean, would I love to see a Daughters of the Dragon series? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly what is going to be here because I think what they're going to try doing, this is just early speculation coming literally out of watching Echo. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to set up for the Kingpin to win the mayoral race.
Probably in Born Again, I'd guess.
Yeah. And then implement the rulings that he's done in the TV show or the comics about vigilantes in New York. Mm-hmm. And then I think that's where you'll see maybe Luke Cage come back in. I wouldn't doubt seeing Simone Missick playing Misty Knight again, Jessica Henwick playing Colleen Wing, and then you introduce the Daughters of the Dragon there.
Yeah.
If they come back with Danny Rand, this would be a great way to do it because he doesn't really need a costume,
right?
As Iron Fist, he has his Iron Fist. What else does he need? So they do have some ways around it. I just think it'd be a little more difficult with Charlie Cox's Daredevil, but they can make it happen. And the thing too, which would be really interesting, and I think it'd be a smart play to do, is Tom Holland is long overdue to meet Mr. D'Onofrio.
That is true.
And we need to have some Spider-Man.
We're now, like, Spider-Man and Kingpin are very entwined with each other over the course of their history.
Yep.
We are now, 2 decades into the run of Spider-Man feature films and have yet to see the two of them interact.
Mm-hmm. And I think that would be box office.
Yeah, it would.
You want an idea for Spider-Man 4? Ooh. I mean, I'm just putting it out there in the karma. But like we say, this is all just trickling out of Echo. So, Pat, let's kind of wrap it up with a bow. What's your official grade on Echo?
If I'm grading it out of 10, probably like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. It's good. It's fun. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the best thing I've ever seen.
No, that's fair. For me, I love the performance by Alki Cox. I loved the representation shown in the show. Mm-hmm. I just think that when we got to the end, the finale fell flat. Mm-hmm. It felt like we were trying to speed up to just conclude it, instead of letting the story play out. Like if they went one more episode, I think that would have done it.
Or even extended some of the episodes, because there was a couple episodes that were not even 40 minutes.
No, they're barely a half hour.
Yeah.
So I think when you factor that into play, I think that kind of hurt the series in the long term, but it did make up for certain areas. I say Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin's always cash. The bonus scene is very good. So if I have to put my official grade on it, I'm giving it a 7.5.
Okay.
So I like where they're going with it, and it's now made me more excited to see Born Again because I believe that that's going to be the next one that we see as fans?
In terms of the live action stuff, yes. The only thing I know of offhand without looking it up that is on the horizon for Marvel Television is X-Men 97. But that's not anything to do with the MCU. That's a continuation of the 1997 or whatever cartoon series.
Yeah, so we definitely will have a lot to discuss about that when that all comes out. But in the meantime, hit us up on that hashtag ODPH pod. What is your thoughts on Marvel Studios' Echo, currently airing on Disney Plus and Hulu? Let's talk about it, shall we? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You ever wondered what comics Mark from Vale is into? What Zach from Left Behind's favorite MCU movies are? Well, Metalcore Nerds is the show for you. My name is Sean Mott, and here at Metalcore Nerds, we cover the latest things in pop culture, whether it be Star Wars, Marvel, DC, AEW, and everything else in between. You can listen to the show every Monday on Adobe Howl at 7 p.m. Eastern, or find it anywhere you find podcasts after it debuts on the radio station.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, it's fight night?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, let's talk about it. UFC is back in full swing this weekend, and we have a very, very interesting card to talk about.
Yeah, so taking place this Saturday, January 20th, from the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, is UFC 297. Rather interesting card, as you said.
Yeah, this one definitely is making some headlines, albeit, though, the main event is probably the reason why, considering who's involved in under recent instances, shall we say.
Oh, boy.
So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the main card, kind of give our picks about what's going on with that, and let's get into it.
Yeah, so we're going to go through the main card, and the first fight on the main card is in the featherweight division between Arnold Allen and Movsar Evloev.
Allen, a lot of hype behind him. Very interesting to see how this plays out for him. And I got to say, you have to kind of wonder with the UFC hype train, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is he the real deal or not?
I mean, we'll see. For Arnold Allen, just 29 years old, he has a professional record of 21 matches, 19 wins, 2 losses, coming off of a loss to Max Holloway by unanimous decision. That was back in April of last year. Prior to that, he had not lost a fight since June 7th of 2014.
Yeah.
Beating the likes of Calvin Kattar via TKO, Dan Hooker via TKO, Sodiq Yusuf by unanimous decision, Nick Lentz by unanimous decision, Gilbert Melendez by unanimous decision, just to name a few. The dude is, well, he's kind of like a well-rounded fighter, I guess you could say. 7 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, 8 by decision. And then going up against his opponent, Movsar Evloev, who is just 29 years old, will turn 30 here in February. For his record, 17 professional matches, 17 wins, no losses. He's coming off of, he does a lot of go the distance unanimous decisions. 3 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, 10 by decision.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Allen will have a nice bounce back here. I mean, he was, like I said, on that hype train, but, you sometimes get derailed, so you really have to see what he's made of.
I'm going to say Evloev just because that's an impressive record he's got going there.
Fair enough.
Then in the middleweight division, you've got Chris Curtis taking on Marc-Andre Baralt.
This is going to be a fun fight. I could see this one going either way, to be honest with you. I mean, it's going to be solid. Nothing really box office for me, so I got to take Baralt in this one.
Looking at the records, Chris Curtis in 41 professional matches has a record of 30 wins, 10 losses, 1 no contest. His last match actually coming in a no contest. That was an accidental clash of heads against Nasruddin Imavov. That was at UFC 289 back in June of last year. Prior to that, he lost to Kelvin Gastelum via unanimous decision, beat Joaquin Buckley via knockout, and then lost to Jack Hermanson via unanimous decision. On the flip side, for his opponent, Marc-Andre Baralt, 23 professional matches, has a record of 16 wins, 6 losses, 1 no contest, currently on a 2-fight winning streak, beating Eric Anders in his last fight via unanimous decision. That was back in June, and then beating Julian Marquez via TKO. That was back in March of last year. His last loss was to Anthony Hernandez via arm triangle choke submission. That was back in September of 2022. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say Marc-Andre Baralt.
Yeah, I think, like I say, it's going to be a great contest. I could see it going split decision, though.
Yeah, I could see that, too. Then we get to the fights we're all here for, because these fights, they're going to be good. Next of which is in the welterweight division, where you have Neil Magny taking on Mike Malott.
Well, Magny is very even leveled. Like
Sure.
I say, he's one of the most well-rounded guys they have in that division. Mm-hmm. Not box office, if you will.
I mean, I'm looking at the breakdown of his fights. Yeah, there's nothing sexy about it.
No, there definitely isn't. So it's like when you sit there and you watch him fight,
Yeah.
you're not going to sit there and scream like wow factors. Like, he's a great fighter. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But in this situation, I just think that, he's one that he'll go in there and he'll scrap. And that's all you want to ask.
Yeah. So in 39 professional matches, Magny has a record of 28 wins, 11 losses, currently on a one-fight losing streak. He lost to Ian Machado Gary via unanimous decision. That was back in August. Before that, he won a split decision matchup, won a matchup against Philip Rowe by split decision. That was back in June of last year. Lost to Gilbert Burns via arm triangle choke submission. But like you said, he's not that sexy of a fighter just because of his 28 wins, 7 are by knockout, 4 by submission, and 17 by decision.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, anything that's not a decision is very spread out because he had a fight against Daniel Rodriguez in November of 2022 where he won by a submission. But then before that, you've got to go back all the way to Craig White where he knocked him out in 2018. In between everything there, it's like unanimous decisions.
Yeah, that's the one thing you're gonna get out of him. Like he'll go in there. He's very technical, but for the wow factor, in my opinion, it's just not there.
So then his opponent, Mike Malott, in 12 professional matches, has a record of 10 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Currently on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight winning streak, beating Adam Fugit via guillotine choke submission, Johan Lanise via arm triangle choke submission. Both of those were in last year. He beat Mickey Gall via TKO in 2022. And he knocked him out. Then he beat Shimon Smoltrisky with a guillotine choke submission in October of 2021. Submitted Solomon Renfro with a rear naked choke submission in 2020. Knocked out Craig Shintani with, that was actually, these last 2 fights weren't even in the UFC. Mm-hmm. They were in separate federations. That's in 2017. Then you get to his 1 draw, which was back in September of 2015. And then his 1 loss was all the way back in October 2014. Where he got knocked out in the first round of a World Series of Fighting fight in those World Series of Fighting 14.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think it's on his side, but I'm going to take Magny in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing just because, like, I'm looking at Mike Malott's record. Like, and it's an impressive record. I mean, you're 10-1-1, but there's also some gaps in there.
Yeah.
Like, you had the December 2020 fight. Okay, then he didn't fight again until October of the next year. Then he didn't fight till April of the next year. Then he didn't fight till February of the next year. And prior to the 2020 fight, he hadn't fought in 3 years. You know, because it was 2017.
That's the one point with it, so you got to be a little leery about that. So, yeah, that's why I say Magny. I think he'll just go in there. It's going to be a unanimous decision, but
yeah,
it's going to be decision.
Then you get to the co-main event of the evening, and this is for the vacant women's bantamweight championship, where you've got Raquel Pennington taking on Mayra Bueno Silva. Fun fact with this, and I cannot take credit for this, I saw this on the ESPN MMA Facebook page today. UFC 297, quote, UFC 297 marks the first women's bantamweight title fight without Amanda Nunes since March 5th, 2016, when Miesha Tate defeated Holly Holm at UFC 196.
Wow.
Talk about dominating a division.
Yeah, I was going to say, the aftermath of Amanda Nunes retiring is going to be settled here. Raquel Pennington, I'm hoping. I am hoping. Like, I'm trying to keep this very impartial. I have nothing against her opponent. But Pennington has had all the tools in the world to do this. And for some reason gets in that cage and just doesn't let loose.
Yep.
And I don't, and like I say, I wish I had a great answer why. This is just me watching at home.
Yeah.
Pennington just freezes up and just is too tentative to just go all out. Like, if you're gonna get knocked out, go get knocked out. But she's got so much power in her hands.
Right.
She should win this.
Right. Excuse me. So looking at the fighters' records, 23 professional matches for Raquel Pennington. She has a record of 15 wins, 8 losses, currently on a 5 fight win streak. She beat Ketlin Vieira via split decision in her last fight. That was in January of last year. She beat Aspen Ladd via unanimous decision. That was in April of 2022. Submitted Macy Chiasson with a guillotine choke submission in December of 2021. Beat Penny Kineze with a unanimous decision. That was back in September of 2021. And then beat Marion Renault with a unanimous decision back in June of 2020. Last loss was Holly Holm at UFC 246. That was in January of 2020. For her opponent, Mayra Bueno Silva, professional record of 14 matches, has a record of 10 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, 1 no contest. That 1 no contest coming from her last fight against Holly Holm. It was overturned because she tested positive for Ritalinic acid, whatever the hell that is. Apparently, it's enough to get your fight overturned.
Yeah, it's banned by USADA there.
Okay. Prior to that, she was on a 3-fight winning streak, beating Lena Landsberg with a knee bar submission. That was back in February of last year. Beat Stephanie Egger with an armbar submission. That was back in April of 2022. Beat Wu Yanan with a unanimous decision. That was back in April of 2022. Last loss was to Menon Ferro. That was a unanimous decision loss back in October of 2021. The one draw came in February of 2021. A little bit of a mixed bag there. She's got 1 knockout, 7 fucking submissions, and 2 decisions. This one, I'm going to say it's Raquel's time.
I hope, man.
I don't anticipate a long title reign, but I'm expecting her to at least get it once.
Get it once at least. Just let the hands fly.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I want to see.
Don't go to the ground.
No, don't go. That's the whole thing. She goes to the ground, it's going to be a short fight.
Oh, God.
It's going to be a short fight. She has to keep the standing. She has to keep the pace out. She has to outpoint. She has to let loose the hands.
Uh-huh.
She can knock out Silva.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a matter of she's going to get out of her head and just, like, listen, you're going to have to take some shots to get some shots.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting it out there. But, damn it, I'm going to say it. All right, make it time. 2nd round knockout.
Yeah. And then we get to the fight we're all here to see, and this is for the UFC Middleweight Championship. You've got Sean Strickland defending his belt against Dricus du Plessis.
Well, the storyline here is Sean Strickland is a madman.
Uh-huh.
Listen, I will not mess with him in real life. I think that he is a guy that, listen, he walks his own path. He beats to his own drum. There's a lot of things to be respectful for that.
Absolutely.
And du Plessis decided to, as the kids say, mess around and find out.
Uh-huh.
We saw the highlight reel that he decided to taunt one Strickland at the last UFC card, and Strickland politely said, Gilbert Burns' family, please move out of the way, and decided to jump 2 rows back and start beating the hell out of him.
Basically told him GFY.
Yeah. Strickland is the one who obviously pulled off a major upset in defeating one Israel Adesanya for the belt.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is going to be a real test for him. Du Plessis is no joke, but I'm going to tell you right now, I think Strickland is going to go in there and he's going to want to end this quick. I know he does not want to go 5 rounds about this.
Mm-hmm.
Du Plessis is going to try taking this to the ground. I think Strickland is ready to meet him halfway.
Yeah.
And then that's when things get interesting. Can du Plessis withstand the strikes?
Uh-huh.
I don't think he can.
In case you haven't gotten, the kind of idea of how fucking nuts Strickland is. Saw this article a couple days ago, and I had to pull it up. But this is from an article on ESPN.com written by Brett Okamoto. It was actually written yesterday as we record. And it says, partway through the article, it says, quote, speaking on his podcast, The Man Dance, Strickland made it clear he would not tolerate du Plessis broaching that subject again this week. And just a little sidebar, the subject being what triggered Strickland to go kind of understandably apeshit in the last fight. But the article goes on to say, quote, I actually sent him a message and I was like, listen, Driscus, we're going to try and murder each other. But if you bring that shit up again, I will fucking stab you, Strickland said. Press conference, weigh in. He was cool about it. But again, I'm not telling you I don't want to fight you, Driscus. I'm not saying you're not a good fighter. I'm just saying that's a line, when crossed, transcends fighting. If I go to Canada and you bring that up, well, guess what? I'm going to jail and they're going to deport me and we spend 8 weeks of training for no fucking reason, close quote.
Yeah. Strickland is a different cat, folks.
Yes, he is.
And like I say, you love him or you hate him.
Mm-hmm.
He is who he is. And this is not a Colby Covington situation.
Nope.
This is how he is.
Nope.
And, listen, I might not agree with him about everything, but I respect him about everything. because he is that guy.
I respect him because I know if I don't, he'll kick my ass.
Well, the thing about it is, like, he is who we get.
Yeah.
That like I said,
There's no sugarcoating. There's no BS. There's no character.
no, there isn't. Like, he is like this 24/7.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said about that he's the anti-Colby Covington. In fact, he does not even like Colby Covington.
Who likes Colby
No,
Covington?
but he made a very, very lengthy comment about Mr. Covington at a press conference, which, I mean, earned some points in my book. I'm just going to put it out there. But as for this fight, I mean, Pat, who you got?
Well, yeah, so looking at the records for Sean Strickland, in 33 professional matches, has a record of 28 wins, 5 losses, 11 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, 13 by decision. For the losses, it's 2 by knockout, 0 by submission, 3 by decision. He's currently on a 3-fight winning streak. Beat Israel Adesanya via unanimous decision in his last fight. That was in September of last year. That was for the UFC Middleweight Championship. Also earned him Performance of the Night. Prior to that, he beat Aspuyan Magomedov via TKO. That was in July of last year. Then he beat Nasruddin Imavov via unanimous decision. That was in January of last year. His last fight was actually his last 2 losses, I should say, were to Jared Cannonier. He lost via split decision. That was in December of 2022. Then he lost prior to that to Alex Pereira via knockout. That was in July of 2022. And then if you want to go before that for his last loss, it was in May of 2018. In a UFC 224. For his opponent, Dricus Du Plessis, 22 professional matches, has a record of 20 wins, 2 losses, 9 wins by knockout, 10 by submission, 1 by decision. For his losses, it's only 1 by knockout, 1 by decision, currently on a good fucking God. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fight winning streak. Knocking out Robert Whittaker in his last fight. That was in July of last year. Knocking out Derek Brunson, although that TKO was a corner stoppage, against Derek Brunson in March of last year. Submitted Darren Till with a face crank. That was in December of 2022. Unanimous decision win against Brad Tavares at UFC 276 in July of 2022. Knocked out Trevin Giles in UFC 264. That was in July of 2021. Knocked out Marcus Perez a fight night in October of 2020. Submitted Brendan Lazar at a federation outside of UFC. That was in December of 2019. And then knocked out Jolatan Santos at another federation outside of UFC. That was in September of 2019. His last loss wasn't even in the UFC. It was in a federation called KSW. It's a martial arts promotion based out of Poland. That was in October of 2018. Good God.
Yeah, like I said, this is going to be fireworks.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's going to be an easy night for Strickland, but I think Strickland's going to take this one, though.
Yeah, it's going to be knockdown drag out. I'm going to say it's going to be a real close decision. Possibly split.
I mean, it would make sense to be split. I just think that Strickland is just on a different level mentally.
Yeah.
And Du Plessis, I mean, it's, you want to say it's his time, but it's like, I don't know. It's something about him, and I don't think he's going to be able to pull this one off.
Yeah.
And then I'm just fingers crossed that eventually we get Strickland Chimaev.
Maybe.
Just for the press conferences.
Maybe. And then we're not far away from UFC 300.
No, especially they just announced one fight for that.
There's a couple fights that are announced for that.
All right, we can talk about that a little bit.
So UFC 300 is taking place on April 13th, 2024 from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Some of the fights that are announced for this, so thus far, lightweight division, you've got Jim Miller taking on Bobby Green.
That's going to be a hell of a fight. And especially that could be Jim Miller's last fight. Mm-hmm. And Jim Miller, for fun fact, I believe, fought at UFC 100. He's fought at UFC 200, and now he's fighting at 300.
Then you've got, in the bantamweight division, Devison Figueiredo taking on Cody Garbrandt.
And that's a bantamweight, you said?
Bantamweight.
Good time for Figueiredo to step up. I mean, the former flyweight champion always kind of struggled with weight there. That's going to be fireworks, too.
Then you've got, at middleweight, Bo Nickal taking on Cody Brundage.
Ooh, that could be interesting for Bo. I mean, obviously, he's the next big thing in that division. I know he wants to stay active, hasn't gone out of the first round, so that'll be a true test for him.
Then you've got, in the featherweight division, Calvin Kattar taking on Aljamain Sterling.
Featherweight, okay. Well, let's see. That should be something for Mr. Sterling.
In the light heavyweight division, next up, you've got Jiri Prochazka taking on Alexander Rakic.
That's going to be violence. I like Fury in that one.
And then in the lightweight division, now this one's got a little note next to it. It says it's a UFC lightweight title eliminator. It is Charles Oliveira taking on Arman Sarukin.
Okay, so the winner of this one is going to get Machev because Machev is not ready yet. Mm-hmm. There's something going on. I believe he's injured.
And then in the lightweight division for the symbolic BMF title, you've got Justin Gaethje taking on Max Holloway.
Okay, so what they need to start doing for this is take down the cage and go go blood sport Kumite. I'm sorry, that's the only way I will acknowledge this as a BMF title. I want those. You got to, if you're going to do those rules, you got to do those rules.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But Gaethje and Holloway, I mean, good fight for both.
Yeah.
Gaethje, I mean, unless, like I say, unless he was going to be getting a title shot there against Machev there.
Right.
Yeah, this is kind of a riskier fight, but
Right.
I mean, obviously, if it's a title eliminator, it's a good fight for him. This will just be a fun scrap.
There's one more fight, too, and this is for the UFC Women's Strawweight Championship, where you've got Zhang Weili defending her belt against Yan Xiaonan.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be real fun. I like Zhang in that one, but that's going to be fun.
Yep. Those are all the fights we know of that are currently announced for UFC 300.
It's crazy to think we're at 300 already.
I know. It feels like just yesterday we were figuring out the setup and how we were going to do UFC 200.
Yeah. Time flies.
It does.
It flies when you have great commentary to talk about, such as the UFC, and this weekend will be no exception because there's going to be a lot of great fights happening, so definitely hit us up on that hashtag. Hashtag ODPH pod. What? And I mean, what is your thoughts about UFC 297, and how do you think UFC 300 is looking? Scary to think. We're almost there.
Just need Brock Lesnar added.
I'll tell you what, maybe
Same company.
Maybe now is the time to do Brock and Fedor. Just putting it out
Oh,
there.
Jesus Christ.
Just putting it out there, folks.
Ninth time's the charm.
Yeah, let's have that discussion, shall we? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is Tom from Tom Joe Lou,
This is Matt from Sideroom Sounds.
and you're listening to ODPH Podcast.
Wanna go where no one knows my name, to the desert, the oceans, or the plains. 'Cause I wanna
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, what you got?
Got a couple things to talk about. We're going to start with sports and going to start with the local minute. And looking at the standings for the Federal Prospects Hockey League, that is, of course, the league our local Binghamton Black Bears play in. And looking at the Empire Division, because that, of course, is the division our Black Bears play in. Another week, still in first place.
Yeah, here we go.
Through 27 games played, they have a record of 18 wins in regulation, 2 losses, 6 overtime or shootout losses, no wins in overtime, and then 1 shootout win overtime. They have 62 total points. They are ahead of Motor City, who's in second place with 46, Danbury in third place, who's got 41 points, Watertown in fourth place, who's got 28 points, and then Elmira in last place with 19 points. Got to say, looking real good this year, just saying. Looking at their schedule from this past week, they had 2 games last week. Both of them were on the road against the Danbury Hat Tricks. They had a game on Friday where they lost by the final score of 5-4. Came back Saturday, though, and won by the final score of 4-1. Got a couple games this weekend. Both of them are at home. For the Friday, January 19th, 7 o'clock Eastern, they are at home against the Danbury Hat Tricks. And then Saturday, June 20th, also at 7 o'clock Eastern, they are at home against the Danbury Hat Tricks. So for more tickets, information, all that good stuff, you can go to BinghamtonBlackBears.com. And we got a little bit of NBA news to talk about. We got some unfortunate news to pass along because this is just coming out today as we record. The Golden State Warriors announced that their assistant coach, and I'm going to butcher this name, so I apologize, Dejan Milojevic, died after suffering a heart attack at a private team dinner at the age of 46. The article on ESPN.com says, quote, the Warriors said Milojevic died Wednesday morning in Salt Lake City after being hospitalized the previous night. Quote, we are absolutely devastated by Dejan's sudden passing, Warriors head coach Steve Kerr said as part of a statement. This is a shocking and tragic blow for everyone associated with the Warriors and an incredibly difficult time for his family, friends, and all of us who had the incredible pleasure to work with him, close quote. The NBA postponed the Warriors game Wednesday in Utah against the Jazz after learning of Milojevic's hospitalization. Milojevic joined Kerr's staff with the Warriors in 2021 and was a well-regarded and popular coach in the NBA and international basketball communities. His primary assignment with the Warriors was working with teams, forwards, and centers. As a coach, he led Bucnost to the Pro League title and National Cup in Montenegro and the National Cup of Serbia. He also coached Mega in the Serbian League and was closely associated with the early development of two-time NBA MVP Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, close quote.
Very sad news to hear.
Yeah.
And, on behalf of our team here, thoughts and prayers out to his family and friends. I mean, just devastating news to hear that.
And then sticking with some NBA news, this one a little confusing. Reading from an article on BleacherReport.com, it sounds like the NBA is looking at making their draft a 2-day event as soon as, this year. So the article is written by Scott Polakich. And the article says, quote, the next NBA draft may last 2 days instead of the traditional one. According to Shams Charania of The Athletic and Stadium, the league discussed extending the draft an extra day during Wednesday's meeting with general managers. Charania explained the idea has picked up steam in part because team executives believe they could better utilize more time for both first and second rounds, close quote. The NBA may be looking to emulate the NFL's approach with its draft. The first round is a primetime event on a Thursday, the second and third rounds are on Friday, and the fourth through seventh rounds are on Sunday. Close quote. So not exactly sure why they're doing this, because obviously there are some folks out there who go through and watch every pick for every team in the NBA. And hey, to you, if that's your cup of coffee, hey, more power to you.
Absolutely.
Personally, for me, I'll pay attention to the first 5 picks, just because past that it's going to be, I'm not going to know them or remember them until something happens and it gets brought up on SportsCenter. But why you need to make this thing 2 days is beyond me.
I have no idea. I mean, it's not as it's the NFL draft.
Right.
I mean, that's the one thing. The second round of the NBA, occasionally we have those superstars kind of emerge from it. I mean, but it's also it's like comparing apples to oranges. Like I say, the draft is very different because a lot of times people go to the D League, they go over.
Oh yeah, or they just flame out.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not like the NFL. So going 2 days is kind of puzzling to me.
Yeah, I mean, and plus that's the thing is the NFL draft is a crapshoot. Major League Baseball even more so. But the NBA is just as much a crapshoot as those guys, because the one I can remember was when Johnny Flynn was with Syracuse. And he had that 6 overtime game against UConn and played the entire time and came out of, declared for the NBA draft that year. And then he got drafted with Minnesota, he got drafted to Minnesota and then never really went anywhere. And it's just that thing you just never know. So that's why, me personally, I'll look the next day and I'll see who went where. I'll browse or I'll see who the Nets took, and I'll see who the Knicks took, because that's when I look at the New York newspapers here at the local stores. That's what I'm going to see on the front page or the back page of the New York Post or something. So I'm just curious who I'm going to be hearing about for the next 4 or 5 years, whatever. But honestly, past the first 5, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. It's a different atmosphere than the NFL draft. So for me, it's my intentional after the Knicks pick, I'm just kind of I'm out.
Yeah. Then I'm going to talk a little bit of entertainment news, and the Emmys took place the other night, which, hey, congratulations to anybody who won. Not trying to take away from what you did, but the fact that Better Call Saul got nominated 53 times, which is a record, and won nothing, is a goddamn travesty. Just saying.
Yeah, I do not agree with that at all.
If you haven't seen Better Call Saul and you have seen Breaking Bad, definitely recommend you watching Better Call Saul, because hey, it's all completed now. All the seasons are out. It's fucking phenomenal. It takes, admittedly, the first season takes a little bit of time to get going, but once it gets going, whoa boy, is it like going with the train with no brakes.
It's extremely good once it gets rolling.
Yes, it does. Then we got to talk a little bit of gaming news, because boy, this is a take. So reading from an article on IGN.com, quote, an executive at Assassin's Creed maker Ubisoft has said gamers will need to, quote, get comfortable not owning their games before video game subscriptions truly take off. Speaking to discuss the launch of Ubisoft's new Ubisoft Plus Premium and Ubisoft Plus Classics subscription, Philippe Tremblay, director of subscriptions at Ubisoft, explained to GI.biz what needs to happen before subscription services become a more significant slice of the video game business. Quote, I don't have a crystal ball, but when you look at the different subscription services that are out there, we've had a rapid expansion over the last couple of years, but it's still relatively small compared to other models, Tremblay said. We're seeing expansion on console as the likes of PlayStation and Xbox bring new people in. On PC, from a Ubisoft perspective, it's already been great, but we are looking to reach out more on PC, so we see opportunity there. One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, like a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games. That's their consumer shift that needs to happen. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They got comfortable not owning their CD collection or DVD collection. That's the transformation that's been a bit slower to happen in games. As gamers grow comfortable in that aspect, you don't lose your progress. If you resume your game at another time, your progress file is still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the game or your engagement with the game. So it's about feeling comfortable with not owning your game. I still have 2 boxes of DVDs. I definitely understand the gamer's perspective with that. But as people embrace that model, they will see that these games will exist, the service will continue, and you'll be able to access them when you feel like that's reassuring. Streaming is also a thing that works really well with subscription. So you pay when you need it as opposed to paying all the time. Close quote. Boy, that's a fucking take.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. People did stray away from DVDs and Blu-rays, the last 10 years or so, but you're starting to see some people go back to that just with how many streaming services there are and the cost of everything, and then not being able to figure out where stuff is. And it's like prime example, the Bond franchise. Everyone knows I am a big fan of the Bond franchise.
Yes.
Figuring out what streaming service they are on at any given month is the biggest pain in the ass you would imagine, because you would think with MGM Studios being owned by Amazon that they'd be on Prime Video. No, there's at least like a half a dozen to a dozen of them on HBO Max or Max. Sorry. Why? Well, reasons. At one point for probably like 9 months, there was if you're not familiar, there's a app out there, a streaming service called Pluto TV. You don't need a subscription service to it. You can download it on your phone or your smart TV or your gaming console. And it's kind of like traditional TV where they've got channels that are catered to certain things, movies and eras and what have you. But you don't need a subscription service. So they had at one point a 24/7 running Bond movie channel, which to me was the fucking greatest channel of all time. I want to watch a Bond movie anytime. Boom. But that's not there anymore, so I can't just turn that on. So now if I want to go watch a Bond movie streaming, I got to figure out what streaming service it's on, which movies are where. But hey, I don't have to worry about that because I've got the Bond collection, which is the first one all the way up through Skyfall. I got No Time to Die on its own. So that's why I have that, is because I know figuring out what streaming service the Bond movies are on is an absolute pain in the ass. And I know some people are, in regards to getting back to games, are hesitant with the subscription services, because I know PlayStation last year, like halfway through the year, jacked up their prices on what it would cost to get into PlayStation Plus, and a bunch of people online talked about getting rid of it. Some of them actually claimed they went through with it. And to sit there and say, oh, the gamers need to get used to not owning their games for subscription. Listen, not everyone has the luxury of having an internet connection that is good enough for these services. That's why some people like having hard disks and what have you to own the games, because somebody may live out in the middle of nowhere where they've got enough of a connection to get by, but is it enough to download the 900 gigabyte update for the latest Call of Duty that they got on Xbox, whatever it's called these days, or PlayStation Plus? No. So I don't think physical game sales will ever go away. They might wax and wane a little bit, but to say that, oh, gamers need to get used to not owning their games, stop.
Well, I think it's harder to find physical media anywhere now. But
that's true.
I think that's where it should be going, and I think that's going to be the ultimate thing. But then again, it's like you can go into old record stores too. I mean, we have places around us. We can go in and go get old vinyl and go get comics and go get, like, not everything needs to be digital.
Well, and it's like, I know it's a slight side note, but it's still connected. Everyone was losing their mind. Oh my God, Best Buy's going to stop selling movies.
Yeah.
Like just in our town alone, you know how many places in town still sell movies? You can still go. There's an FYE in town that you can still go get movies.
Yeah, so
Walmart still sells movies. Target still sells movies. There's we got a couple local places in town that still sell movies. Admittedly, it's not always the latest stuff, but they got a hell of a collection.
They got collections.
They got a hell of a collection, I must say. So listen, there's always going to be places to buy this stuff.
Yeah.
And sticking with the video game news, it was announced today by the folks over at PlayStation that we're going to be getting a remaster of Tomb Raider 1 through 3 on the PS4 and PS5. So reading from an article on the PlayStation blog, it says, quote, "It's been almost 30 years since Lara Croft took her first snowy steps into the mountains of Peru. In about 30 days, just about a month, PlayStation players will get to re-experience Lara's first 3 globe-trotting adventures with a fresh look and feel in Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remastered on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. And then the article goes on to tell a little bit of how this happened, and it's thanks to Asper Games. It was a company out of Austin, Texas in 1998. You know, they helped launch Tomb Raider 2 on the Macintosh computer all the way back when, you know, and they're working on the remaster and some of the engineering stuff. You know, so there's this whole awesome article on the PlayStation blog. It's super exciting to see because I never owned the first place Lara Croft game, but I remember going to Sears of all places, for those of you that remember Sears, and going to their electronics section because my parents were looking for TV, something electronics, and I remember seeing a PlayStation 1 demo you can play, and I remember playing the PlayStation 1 first Lara Croft game and thinking, this looks fucking amazing. This is the greatest thing. Oh my God, this is 3D and I can turn the camera. What? Yeah. Like, that's nuts. To get the chance to play this again, looks awesome.
Yeah, it definitely looks very interesting. So,
excuse me. And then we got to go switch over to some movie news because it was announced about a week or so ago. We still got more Star Trek movies on the way. So reading from an article on Variety.com, it says, quote, "A new Star Trek film is in the works at Paramount with Andor's Toby Haynes on board to direct and Seth Graham-Smith penning the script, Variety has confirmed. While plot details are being kept under wraps, the upcoming feature will be an origin story that is set decades before 2009's Star Trek, as well as an expansion of the Star Trek universe J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot is producing. Meanwhile, the 4th installment of the rebooted Star Trek film series remains in development, with the studio describing it as, quote, the final chapter, close quote. In the third film, 2016's Star Trek Beyond, the crew of the USS Enterprise crash lands on a mysterious world after being attacked by the lizard-like dictator Krall, who was played by Idris Elba. A 4th Star Trek movie starring Chris Pine was announced in July of 2016 with Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana, Carl Urban, John Cho, and Simon Pegg expected to return. Chris Hemsworth, who appeared in the 2009 original, was set to return to the space saga as George Kirk, the father of Captain James T. Kirk, played by Chris Pine. According to Paramount at the time, Star Trek IV would see Pine's Captain Kirk cross paths with his father, who was a man he never had a chance to meet, but whose legacy has haunted him since the day he was born, close quote. During a Paramount Global Investors Day presentation in February of 2022, Abrams announced that a new Star Trek movie would begin shooting by the end of that year with the Pine-led crew. Pine and his co-stars reportedly had no idea Paramount was moving forward with another Star Trek film, which was eventually removed from the studio's film slate in September of that year. Haynes recently directed 6 episodes of Star Wars series Andor, starring Diego Luna as the titular role. He also helmed the Star Trek-inspired episode of Black Mirror, titled USS Callister. Haynes is repped by WME and attorney Peter Nelson. Chris Graham-Smith is best known as the author of the best-selling novel Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. He also wrote and produced 2017's The Lego Batman Movie, close quote. So I'm excited more Star Trek movies. I know for as much as, the older crowd might hate the reboot Star Trek movies, they're not that bad.
No, the reboots are fine.
Yeah.
I think for this day and age, I mean, anything that's redone, as long as it's done tastefully and respectfully, it's okay. And especially the Star Trek, it needs a little shot in the arm, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's kind of falling behind Star Wars, just saying.
A little bit.
So let's get into some comic talk, and because obviously it's new comic book day, so let's get your picks and take us on home here.
Yeah, so got to mention first a couple things. First of which from DC, Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, issue number 4. This one, boy, if you haven't seen the headlines about this, I'm not going to spoil it.
Yeah, big news coming out of that book.
But the description reads, quote, "The Justice League's losses are mounting as they battle to contain the Titans from Legendary's Monsterverse. Aquaman and Atlantis confront an otherworldly Leviathan, while in the shadows, the Legion of Doom and Lex Luthor plot their next decisive move to eliminate the League, but the emergence of the League of Shadows could spell doom for the world," close quote.
Yeah, this series has been phenomenal. If you haven't checked it out, you want just big box office, this is your book.
Then from the folks over at DC, Nightwing issue 110, for no other reason than, yes, Tom Taylor is still writing, but the fucking cover art alone.
Yeah, the cover art is amazing.
Cover art is incredible. But the description of this says, Nightwing, Batgirl, and the Titans are doing all they can to save a world overrun by beasts. Heroes have become threats, and one of the biggest threats now stalks the streets of Bloodhaven. Where once there was a Robin, now there is a cat. Can John Kent and Nightwing save the city from Damian Wayne? Or will the Super Sons be torn apart forever?
This is a wild story coming out of obviously what's going on with Beast World. It's Tom Taylor. What can you say?
I need this cover art.
But that
framed.
cover is amazing.
Oh my God. Looks amazing.
Yeah.
And then from the folks over at DC, issue number 10 of Superman from Joshua Williamson. Description of this one, quote, "Howdy, partners. Welcome to the Wild West of Metropolis, where the man of tomorrow meets the man from yesterday. Clark is on a rootin' tootin' rodeo adventure along with the ghostly Marilyn Moonlight as they get to the bottom of why she haunts the night. Get your posse and join us for a hoedown like you've never seen before. Yee-haw!" Close quote.
This has been a fun story.
The cover art on this is also amazing.
Yeah, Bruno Redondo, who's stepping in for art duties, really knocking it out of the park. Interesting ending to this story, too, by the way.
There's also a panel in this book that is quite possibly the funniest panel I've seen in a Superman comic.
I have to agree. It's up there.
In years.
It's up there.
Then from the folks over at Marvel, you've got Avengers Twilight, issue number 1 from Chip Zdarsky. Cover art is also phenomenal. All the cover art this week is phenomenal. This one, especially because it's Alex Ross. But this one reads, quote, "In a gleaming new world of prosperity, Captain America is no more. But Steve Rogers still exists, floating through an America where freedom is an illusion, where the Avengers are strangers and his friends are long dead. But is the dream? How do you assemble Avengers in a world that doesn't want them?" Plus, a behind-the-scenes look at the making of this issue.
Yeah, no, this has been one that they hyped up at New York Comic Con, and very interested to see what the fans think of this one.
Then you've got Invincible Iron Man, issue number 14 from Gary Dugan. Listen, I was not the biggest Iron Man comic fan, and then I decided to start reading the Iron Man comic on Marvel Unlimited or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
fucking amazing work. This is up there for like Nightwing Tom Taylor levels for me of how good this is. So the description of this reads, "Tony Stark needs more than just armor to defeat Orcus. He needs an army. Can Ironheart build one in time? Who will answer the call?"
Yeah, this one, a lot of things happening. Obviously, the Fall of X going down. The cover looks insane.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely want to make sure to check that one out.
Then you've got Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 42 from Zeb Wells. This one says, "Gang war continues. The Beetle has stepped up in her father's absence, and she's become a very different Janice Lincoln. She's smart, dangerous, and ready to take the big chair. With Spider-Man and others distracted by Kingpin, she just might do it."
This has been an interesting story. I will say it's been a lot better than the current issues of Amazing Spider-Man has been. Like, Gang War has really kind of injected new life into the title, or the flagship title. The ending to this one, though, listen, if you can't get excited about what's happening next, I don't know what you can do.
This cover looks nuts, especially just of who the Beetle is holding.
Yeah. Tombstone unconscious like that.
With his mouth bleeding profusely.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It's wild.
Then from the folks also at Marvel, you've got Star Wars The High Republic, Phase 3, issue number 3 from Kevin Scott. Quote, "The taking of the Ataraxia Lorna D's treachery has been revealed, but can she escape as the Republic Defense Coalition combines forces with an unlikely ally? Jedi Master Keeve Trennis must board a ship she thought was lost, but is anyone prepared for the extent of Lorna's ruthlessness? Innocent lives hang in the balance as Keeve makes a monumental decision, close quote. I'll be honest, I did not see this coming because it's been a hot minute since I've thought of Lorna D in the whole Star Wars High Republic storyline, but I'm interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, it's High Republic.
High Republic can't go wrong.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, from the folks over at Dynamite Comics, James Bond with Garth Ennis writing.
That's going to be something.
So the description of this is, quote, a relic of the Cold War. The deadly compound Stalvoda has a long-buried connection with MI6. So when it mysteriously reappears in disturbing circumstances, the agency naturally assigns its best operative to get to the bottom of things. 007 himself, James Bond. But Bond isn't the only one to have carried the 00 rank. With its MI6's secrets, former agent Archibald Tyron is another, and he's also carrying a grudge, one that's aimed squarely at the heart of His Majesty's Secret Service. Legendary comics Arthur Garth Ennis joins Arthur Rafa Labosco and cover artist Dave Johnson to bring you part 1 of Your Cold, Cold Heart, marking the 10-year anniversary of James Bond comics being published at Dynamite. Close quote.
Well, I know you're all over that one, Pat.
Abso-goddamn-lutely.
Yeah, I say their James Bond stuff has been very, very interesting at Dynamite, so definitely give them a shout-out for that. For my picks this week, it's a big Skybound G.I. Joe weekend.
All right.
So obviously G.I. Joe 303, continuing the story, Larry Hama's on the writing it, so you know that's always going to be something I check out. And then one of the most anticipated books of the year, actually, in my opinion, Cobra Commander #1, Joshua Williamson, Andrea Milena. So this is like the origin story of Cobra Commander and how they've been doing everything with the Energon universe. We've had the Duke series, which is kind of introducing Duke to this new landscape,
right?
Spiraling out of Transformers. So this is kind of where Cobra Commander starts fitting in. There are some big ramifications from this one.
Okay.
So if you really like what you've seen at Skybound with the Energon universe, you definitely want to go pick it up. It's a very dope issue. I really enjoyed reading it. And it's Joshua Williamson. I mean, he's crushing it right now. And this is one that you can definitely tell like how much he's enjoying with it. So definitely want to say that one. On the DC side of things, Batman Superman World's Finest 23. Need I say more? It's
no.
I mean, it's Mark Waid, Dan Mora in the world of Kingdom Come. And we're yeah, like I say, we're getting near to the end issue of that story arc. And let's just say that
boy, they're going places.
We have a character that is coming in that wasn't in Kingdom Come, but let's just say he is got something to say about life and anti-life, if you will. Yeah.
I pick up what you're dropping there.
Yeah. So you definitely want to make sure you're checking that out. I mean, it's arguably up there as one of the best superhero books on the block, bar none. Image Comics also had a strong week too. Enfield Gang Massacre #6 is out, so if you've been following that storyline, a lot of people have been buzzing about that. Dark Horse, Black Hammer, The End #5, so that series has been definitely one that has been gaining a little ground, if you will. And there's so many other series out right now. That's why we have a lot of reviews up currently at nerdinitiative.com. So you want to go find out what to go pick up this week at the comic shops, definitely head on over there. The team's got you covered on every major publisher going on right now. Big week of comics, and then next week is going to be even more insane because a certain imprint is finally making their big debut.
Ooh.
And they're good friends of the show. So we'll have to kind of talk about that on next week's edition. So as we like to end the entertainment edition, always make sure you're going out and support your local comic shops wherever you're at. And definitely, if you got a great issue in your hand, hand it off to somebody struggling, tell them to turn a page. Borrowing from the YouTube show for that one. And we'll just say for anything and everything that is the ODPH, you can find it at odphpodcast.com. That's it for this week. So for the one and only Padawan J.
Fuck the Astros.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH podcast. We'll see you next time.
It's such waste of time swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. 'Cause anyone who's worth a damn be worth way more than a picture could ever show. You could find the right light, find the right angle, and never find your soul. And it can feel like a losing battle, and this plot is full of holes. This modern way of finding love just makes me feel so alone. And I can't be the only one sick of staring at my phone. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Don't know that I believe in the old time fable. Everyone has just one true love. All I know is you're across this table, and you're all I'm thinking of. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Ooh, ooh, talk to me. Ooh, talk to me. It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. Whoa, whoa.